Welcome in, everyone, to a Seahawks Aftermath on the Hawk's Eye podcast. And today, I think it's pretty clear what we're going to be talking about, and that is our Seattle Seahawks being back on top where they belong, kings of the NFC West, as well as kings of the NFC, going into the playoffs starting next week. So I brought the trifecta with me. I've got Mookie Alexander, I've got Michael Thompson, and we're going to talk things all Seahawks and 49ers matchup, and kind of look ahead a little bit to what Seattle could face in the playoffs. Who are some good opponents for them to take on? We talked about it before. We'll bring it up a little bit again, and obviously some other Seahawks news that came out. But fellas, before we get into it, how was yesterday for you guys?
Satisfying. Oh, so satisfying. You know, we were really close to not needing the 1 seed or even the division to come down to this weekend. In hindsight, it was better that they won it this way instead of just having enough outside help so that they could have just rested starters in week 18. This was way better to win the NFC West title in Santa Clara. Hopefully that's not their last trip to Santa Clara for this season. That was also satisfying. I mean, you know, the very often when the 49ers have a Seahawks game in Santa Clara, there are a lot of Seahawks fans there. That didn't feel like the case this year, which only made the silence so much sweeter.
Michael, how about for you?
Statement made, right? Like, that was just something that feels like it's been waiting years, probably since 2019, that we've been waiting for that moment to come about where, you know, they ripped our heart out at the 1-inch line to steal the division. And it seems like we haven't really recovered since then until now. And to go in there, like Mookie said, that was a playoff game. That was hostile territory. Like, I'll give the Niners their credit. They were excited for the first few minutes, and Seattle just punched them in the mouth and sent not just a message to the 49ers, but I think a message to the NFL of who is the best team in the NFL. And we're going to talk about that probably a bit today, but statement made is just kind of like the thing that keeps ringing in my ear. It seems like every year the Super Bowl team has a specific game where they send a message. And that might've been it for the Seattle Seahawks last night.
That, to me, even though the score of this game being 13-3, and we can talk about it, probably should have been 19-3, a couple of missed field goals there by Jason Myers, which hopefully he gets those all out of his system now. And probably that one opening drive that should have ended in a touchdown and it didn't. That game never at any point to me felt like the 49ers were even a part of the conversation. Like, they just didn't offensively. Like, everyone going in that game, we're talking about Kyle Shanahan as the, you know, potential coach of the year. And yes, I get Ricky Pearsall and Trent Williams are out. I will give more credit to Trent Williams being out than Ricky Pearsall being a factor in that. Like, let's be honest here. Like, I don't think that was as big as Trent Williams, but regardless of that, you still had Kyle Shanahan. He's still been rolling with this offense. Purdy and them everyone was talking about how great this offense was. And I kept saying the matchup really, to me, wasn't going to be Seattle's defense versus 49ers offense, because we've seen this story before in Seattle. When we have an elite defense playing at a high level, we could go up against the all-time offense for scoring points in a year in the Super Bowl and make them look absolutely ordinary. There's something about a fast, physical defense that stifles offenses, and that is what we saw. Like, I'll put it to you guys this way. How often, if you think about his career in George Kittle, do you see George Kittle getting tackled by one dude? Just one. Unless that one dude is like a Ray Lewis or a Brian Urlacher or one of the elite linebackers that have ever played in the NFL. How often do you see a guy that dude get tackled by one guy? You don't. But who decided to make a statement last night for Defensive Rookie of the Year? Nicky Manwari did, and he was all over George Kittle last night.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that was as emphatic a defensive performance. It was practically flawless. I mean, even the field goal that they got was because Jason Myers kicked the ball out of bounds. It gave him even greater field position than a touchback. They drove all of 30 yards to get that. And then the one time they get in the red zone, they get intercepted. Should McCaffrey have caught that pass? Sure, but it was slightly tipped by Mafe. So this is like the tip part 2 in a way. Mafe getting the slightest of touches, but Drake Thomas is on the scene to get the dagger play. But you know what was the most satisfying? Well, I'll keep using satisfying. the most amazing thing about the way that game played out, the last drive. I know Myers really screwed up in this game, but the doink aside, it's the principle of getting 8 minutes off that clock, forcing the 49ers to use all their timeouts, running game working, Sam Darnold making timely throws to Cooper Kupp. That's the type of clock killing, grind it out, break their spirits type of drive against a quality opponent that we have been crying out for years. And that was a thing of beauty. Really, the only way it could have gotten better besides Myers making his field goals if Zach Charbonnet didn't randomly stop his feet there on the 3rd and short. They might have gotten a touchdown out of it. Still, it would have been just as humiliating if they were able to just kneel out the clock from there.
Yeah, like as impressive as the trench like domination was, right, on the defensive side, like I just, you saw Brock Purdy, he looked like gosh, I don't even know who like a good comp is, but I mean, he looked like a true elite scrambling quarterback against the Bears, right? 6 days prior, just dancing around him. He looked like prime Russell Wilson is probably a good example of the way he looked. And then against us, there was nowhere to run. Like, I think he had one first down run, and that was it. Everything else, he looked like he was running for his life. As amazing as that front seven of our defense was, man, to watch us just take their soul running the football, like right up the gut, just punching them in the mouth was, I know Mookie said it a few times, that was for me the most satisfying thing about that game last night was just Charbonnet and Walker kicking their ass.
There was actually one other satisfying moment in this game, guys. And I got to be honest with you. Like, there was a lot of things that were really great in this game. We talked about Demon War. We talked about this defense smothering. But this is probably my favorite moment of the entire game was 3rd and 17 and watching poor John Lynch lose his mind as Ken Walker ran through a 17-yard 49er defense for a first down. Just, I feel like John's sitting there going, if I was out on that field, that never would have happened. That never would have been a thing I ever would have let happen when I was a safety in the NFL. And instead, he watched his defense give that up. That was absolutely fantastic.
It's a tale of two Johns, right? I mean, you got John Lynch's reaction to that play, and then later on you get to see John Schneider. And, the Seahawks really did not need to sweat this victory out whatsoever. It was that easy.
Yeah, well, I'll be honest. I think John Lynch, 1, had his meltdown. 2, John Schneider, though, he had a different type of meltdown to you, what you alluded to there a little bit, Mookie. He might be the poster boy for Old Spice. If you were to make like a really good Super Bowl commercial, just put John Schneider in that particular moment there. And you know what? That's a great segue, Mookie, into what I think he was actually sweating about. It had nothing to do with the game. It had everything to do with the Charles Cross extension conversation that was probably going on during the game at some point. And I think that's what truly had John sweating and creating those pit stains like he did yesterday.
There we go. Yep. Charles Cross got his contract extension in the middle of us watching football worry-free on Sunday. I was laying down in bed just chilling, watching Red Zone, and then I see on my phone, Charles Cross got an extension and Ian Rappaport's reporting it. Like, okay, let me just double check that this isn't fake and I actually have to get up and work again, but and write stuff up again. But no, it's real. $26 million a year on the extension, but it's not replacing the 5th-year option. So it averages out to $24 million a year until he's 30 years old, and $24 million a year now is not going to mean a whole lot as long as the cap keeps rising a few years down the line. So is he getting paid best tackle in the league money? No, I think Rashawn Slater's got the top contract right now. Are other guys going to get paid at that position? Are going to overtake Charles Cross soon? Yeah, probably. So this is, to me, a very good deal for Cross and for the Seahawks. And how about this? All the talk about John Schneider and investing in this offensive line or the lack thereof or some bad investments goes the whole of his GM time, only extending Justin Britt. Out of all of his draft picks on the offensive line, Justin Britt was the only guy he actually extended, gave a second contract to while on his rookie deal. This season, he extended Lucas before the season started, and now he extends Cross after the regular season ends, in addition to drafting Gray Zabel in the first round to quell the discourse about the importance of guard play and interior O-line. So this is proper O-line investment that we have not seen in forever, basically since the Walton Hutch days.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing. Okay, I'll put it to you this way, Mike. What do you think has changed the philosophy for John? And I know the easiest thing is, well, our offensive lines have been absolutely horrible, but this was a trend he had of where he wasn't really giving out extensions to O-linemen. And we saw some of our O-linemen that we drafted, a Mark Glowinski. Some of these other guys go off and do quite well. Damian Lewis, even to a point, has done pretty well in Carolina. What do you think the switch has been to have these extensions now done with this offensive line?
I mean, I may be wrong, but I almost kind of wonder how much of it has to do with just timing. I think the timing of who gets the extensions, who's due, who's up first for those extensions plays a big factor into that. Like, I don't know, maybe you guys might disagree. Would you say Cross has been a better left tackle or the same as Russell Okung? Or would you say they're pretty similar? Like, but if I remember correctly, Okung got paid pretty good, didn't he? Did he not?
He got the negotiated deal that was like almost fully guaranteed, I believe, at that time.
He negotiated himself, I believe, if I remember.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like a unique situation. If I remember correctly, we really took care of our defensive guys and Russ first. Like that was like the big thing of taking care of them. If you remember correctly, we had made some previous deals as well that might have impacted things. And again, maybe my timing's off, but I think of Sidney Rice's contract. If I remember, we paid Percy Harvin. The Russ extension was definitely a big one. We decided to pay Marshawn Lynch. Like a lot of these deals had to get done. And I'm just trying to think I think we're all in agreement. Like the most logical thing was after losing the Super Bowl was to extend Max Unger, right? And instead, they decided not to do that and go the Jimmy Graham route. And that was like a fork in the road moment for a decade of Seahawks mediocre play. And is that the only reason why that happened? No, it's not. But that is like the spark of what started a decade long of us not getting to where we are today, which is the division champs, #1 seed, hosting 2 playoff games, hopefully to go to the Super Bowl. And a lot of that has to do with, again, it hasn't been perfect at all this year, but continuing to believe and continuing to push until you get the right pieces on the offensive line. And I think John feels like he has that. And he doesn't necessarily have to extend Witherspoon yet. He doesn't necessarily have to extend JSN just yet. He decided that he believes that Abe Lucas is going to hold up, and he believes that Charles Cross is built for this future. And when you nail guard picks, like those are just things that you don't have to worry about it. These things just kind of add up to the point where, yes, at some point, one of these players that we fell in love with last night is not going to be a Seahawk, right? There's probably a couple. And so at some point, these tough decisions are going to have to be made. But Bryce, you and I have talked about this. I know Dan and I have talked about this for years. Like you take care of the trenches and then you figure out everything else. And that's just something that I fully believe in as building a franchise is how you're supposed to do it. And I think the teams that do that typically end up being good to great more often than my star quarterback for a couple of years or a star running back kind of carries me for 2 or 3 years, like the Titans with Derrick Henry, for example, and stuff. The moment the offensive line started to fade in Tennessee, now look at them, right? And so that's just kind of what I go to. And again, I just think it's the timing where you don't have to extend Witherspoon yet. They probably will this offseason. You don't have to extend JSN yet. But now, again, this contract with Cross is great for Cross. But man, it's like really great for the Seahawks, in my opinion. I think it's a really friendly deal. It's going to lower his cap hit next year. And we don't have to get into offseason talk right now. But I think that's the type of move. Because if I'm correct, they can pay him with some of their salary cap this year on that contract, I think is what I heard. I may be wrong on that. But I believe like they've set themselves up where like they can like go get those extensions done with JSN and Witherspoon, but they can also go make not just one, but like maybe even like 2 like sizable moves if they really wanted to. If they decide we're going all in next year or something like that, they can do that.
So here's the interesting thing about this. Now, Mookie, I don't know if you got more details on this. I'm just looking at Ian Rappaport's tweet right now. So it says, Seahawks signed star tackle Charles Cross have agreed to a 4-year extension worth $104.4 million, $26.1 million per average. This is the largest non-QB contract in Seattle history. He gets $40.5 million in year 1 in the deal. So Now, is that year one after the 5th-year option? Is that what they're classifying as year one? Because you mentioned that they are not ripping up the 5th-year option part, or is that just added on to what his 5th-year option was?
Yeah, I think it's after the 5th-year option. So in other words, he plays on the 5th-year option, and then the
And
4-year
then the
extension kicks
following
in.
year,
So
so
what
the
it
new years of
Yeah.
it.
So it's effectively a 5-year extension, which is why 5 years and it's about 120 million or thereabouts. Whatever gets you to 24 point some odd million a year. At least that's from
Right.
Brady Henderson's reporting. So again, that's good business to me. Yeah, the one thing with Schneider, for the most part, is his extensions of certain players have been normally on the very sensible side. And we needn't look further than the offseason extension of Ernest Jones. I mean, that is an absolute steal of a contract with the level of play that he's providing. And even the Jaron Reed deal, and Reed is kind of like in the third fiddle behind Williams and Murphy. But even that is a pretty good contract, given his productivity. And if there have to be tough decisions made, Reed is kind of the oldest one of the group and somebody you can move on from without having to incur something damaging against the cap. But John knows how to, and that Seahawks staff, they know how to number crunch when it comes to their guys, and not having to break the bank for Crosby, even though, the common thing is if you're anywhere near top 10, maybe your agent or somebody pushes for you to get top 2, top 3 money. That's not going to be the case. Cross is not going to be paid like a top 2, top 3 tackle on this deal.
Yeah, and it's the whole thing here that I think is good is you now have your 2 tackles done. They're both locked in for the next few years for sure. Cross, obviously, a longer duration than Abe. Really, this offensive line's locked up all next year. Bradford isn't a free agent. He still has another year on his deal, I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong, but he's in year 3, correct, Mookie? So he has next year as his last year, right?
Yes.
Sundell and Olu are still here. Zabel's going to be back, obviously. Lucas, like, you got some continuity. That's the other key to this. There is now continuity that they will be able to carry over. Now, again, we know there may be changes, whether it's at center or right guard going forward. But, again, we'll talk about it in a little bit here. The offensive line last night probably had its most dominating run game performance in probably, I don't know, at least 7 years, in my opinion. I know the Arizona game's in there from last year, but there was something different about last night than even the Arizona game last year where Charbonnet went off. Like, we enforced will onto the 49ers, which is something we haven't seen since there was another running back in that backfield carrying the rock for Seattle, which it looked like last night that Marshawn was there in spirit with Charbonnet and Ken Walker, because there was a little bit of both of them having moments of Marshawn last night for sure.
I mean, I would almost say, like, I don't disagree with you, but I watched that game and I was like, man, I'm getting some flashbacks to the Sean Alexander years. Like, I thought the line was getting like a legit full yard and a half push over and over and over. And like Walker had a few of those like classic Sean Alexander cutbacks. And when there actually is room to run, that is the type of play that is what makes Kenneth Walker such an explosive player, right? When you give him that time to make that type of, I don't want to say like a Le'Veon Bell, but kind of like that Le'Veon Bell, Sean Alexander cutback. That's how he got those 8-9 yards, right? And then Charbonnet, yeah, again, even in Walker as well, he ran hard. But with Charbonnet, like, just you give him that momentum. We've all joked, Charbonnet looks slow as you know what. Like, but yeah, it's because he keeps running into the line that's getting pushed a yard back into him. When you give him that extra, not just a yard back, not line of scrimmage, but you give him a yard and a half forward. Now he starts to build that college momentum of what we saw of him at UCLA when he looked like one of the best players in college football. And man, no better time than right now to start having your running game just kind of automatically but like flip the switch into ass kicker mode. And like, that's the type of running game that you can run all the way to 3 straight wins. No doubt.
Yeah. And, let's kind of talk about this a bit, Mike and Mookie. Like, we're now the kings of the West. Like, something we really haven't done since 2020.
2016,
and we haven't really like, yeah, I'll count 2016 really as the last true time where fans were allowed in the stands to be a part of it. And, you go back and you look and go, okay, well, the last time we were the number 1 seed in the NFC wasn't 2014. And even that 2014 season, like, again, it came down to the end of the season, but that season had a little bit of its ups and downs. We were at 4-4 at one point, and then they kind of went on their massive win streak. And even though the season didn't end the way we wanted it to, but this feels more like the first time we did it in 2013 with this team. Like there's such an energy to it. There's such a kind of like, Ernest Jones kind of said it, that we're here now. Like the road goes where it's supposed to go through, and stop calling us pretenders because we've beat people that you said we couldn't beat.
Mm-hmm. It's a mixture of 2013 and 2014 to me, because the 2014 team, the one caveat there is Carson Palmer tearing his ACL. It's very possible that Arizona could have, because it came down to the final day, and Arizona ends up going to the wild card. But there's only so much you can do with Ryan Lindley as your quarterback. So that really just changed their fortunes for that season. Seattle still had to run the table pretty much to win that division. They were like 6-4 after the Chiefs game, and they had to beat the Cardinals twice, and they had to beat San Francisco twice. And you know what last night's game reminded me of a bit? That Thanksgiving game against San Francisco in 2014, that was similar domination. Sherman picking off Kaepernick twice. They dominated that game, and it was only 19-3 because they completely screwed up in the red zone multiple times over. Otherwise, it should have been like 20 or 30 something to 3. So 2014 team had to run the table to win the division. They did that. The 2013 team kind of stumbled a bit toward the 1 seed because they were 11-1 after that pummeling of the Saints. Then they lose a hard-fought game in San Francisco. They beat the Giants, but that was a dreadful team. Shut them out. They lose that game to Arizona, 17-10. That was a horrendous showing by the offense, given that Palmer got picked off 4 times in that game. So it came down to the last day, and they had to beat the Rams. And I know the Rams are an annoyance, but that was actually one of the rare times they easily beat a Jeff Fisher team. But the principle of this defense and the way that they just impose their will on opponents, that feels Super Bowl caliber to me. And the way that the 2014 offense, their running game got going late in the season as well, after some mixed results and some kind of stumbles. But that 2014 rushing attack also had Russ as a major reason it worked so well. Sam Darnold, not really a major reason for why the running game is working the last few weeks. But still, this Seahawks team, Kings of the West indeed, and this is the toughest division ever. 3 teams finished with 12 wins, and that has never happened before. I know it's a 17-game season, but it's not like it's that much easier to win 12 games in 17 versus 16. So they had to win 14 to fend off 2 teams that won 12. And they also ended up with a tougher schedule than people realized or thought it would be at the start of the season. Who would have guessed that the AFC South would be more than just Houston? It ended up being Jacksonville at 13-4 and winning the AFC South. And then Houston from 0-3 goes to 12-5. I mean, it's funny that the Houston-Seattle game was the back end of that Monday night doubleheader. It played in the dead of night on Central and Eastern time. Subdued atmosphere because of the way the Mariners season ended. And that could be a Super Bowl rematch. I mean, it's not that inconceivable at this point. So the Seahawks had to run the table like they did in 2014, and they ran the damn table. How can you not be impressed with all that they've been through? And they avenged the 2 of their 3 losses along the way. They don't have to avenge the 3rd loss because Tampa Bay is out of here.
It's
God,
crazy. Like bad. In hindsight, like looking at the end of the season, resume-wise, like if you're treating this like March Madness, can't believe the Steelers might actually beat the Ravens right now. But resume-wise, this might be the greatest season in Seahawks history. If you're looking at resumes, like look at who they've beaten this year. Look at how like fluky their losses are. I don't think any of us would say this is the greatest Seahawks team of all time. I think the 2013 team, and you can even make a case the 05 team probably kind of holds the gold and silver medal right now. And you go win the Super Bowl, you'll have the all-time most wins in a season. But like you look at this resume, okay? Like you kind of were punking the Houston Texans. And again, that did not look like the team that might be the best 5 seed, along with the Rams. Like there's a very real scenario where Houston and the Rams might be 2 real legit Super Bowl contenders as 5 seeds. You went to Jacksonville, and I think we all agree that game was a lot closer on the scoreboard than it felt, the way we kind of dominated it. And again, that was back when we didn't know how to close out a game, which kind of shows the growth to now. That team, I mean, if I told you the Jacksonville Jaguars versus the Seattle Seahawks in the Super Bowl, I don't think you would necessarily bat an eye. Like, I think you would like chuckle and be like, that's funny. Like, man, you kind of get that NBA talk, Mookie, of like, oh, that's going to be bad for the ratings and stuff. Like, it's the Super Bowl. That's not really a conversation. But if it ever was going to be, it'd be because the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to the Super Bowl. But that might be like, that's a legit number 3 seed that could be a 1 seed in any other season. Like the way that they're playing and stuff. And then you beat the Rams, and then you just kick the living crap psychologically and physically out of the 49ers. That is 4 wins over like true legitimate. If I told you Houston, Jacksonville, LA, and San Francisco made the Super Bowl, you'd be like, yeah, I could see that.
I want to add something before Bryce speaks. Let's say Pittsburgh hangs on here over the last 4 minutes and this Tomlin magic continues. That would mean 5 wins over 10-plus win teams for the Seahawks this year. And I have mentioned this throughout the Geno Smith era. And please don't make this as like Geno's at fault here, because I know how people will interpret this.
Here we go, Mookie. Good job.
They won 6 games against teams with at least 10 wins for the whole of the Geno era. And that's across 3 seasons. That was my hang up with a lot of the Pete teams, including some of the Russ Pete teams. From like the 2020 team was kind of a farce. They beat the Rams and then beat pretty much nobody else good for the rest of that season. And when they played a tough team like Buffalo, they got absolutely annihilated. So they were kind of deceptively not as good as the 12-4 record suggested. This team is every bit as good as the 14-3 record says they are, because they are getting they're getting those statement wins. They're beating elite teams. You're not always going to beat elite teams. You're not always going to beat teams that are similar record as you up at the top, because that's just sports. But the way they're hammering the bad teams too matters to me as much, because Seattle's point differential in some of their games over the last few seasons against like sub 500 opposition or teams competing for the top 5 in the draft, they're scraping by them. This year, I think the only time they really cut it close was not the Tennessee game, but the Arizona game, and it's a divisional matchup. Otherwise, they were playing Drew Lock late in the garbage time minutes against the Vikings, who somehow finished 9-8, but against the Vikings, against the Saints, against the I think Lock came in for the Falcons game, didn't he? So yes, those 3, the Commanders game, he came in for mop-up duty 5 times. I mean, there was a 3 or 4 year stretch where the Seahawks could not put the backup quarterback in for Russell Wilson in garbage time because they were constantly in close games. And I'm glad that the Seahawks are stomping out bad teams, showing their superiority, and going toe-to-toe, and often this year, beating the top teams. That's a big deal to me, and it shows in the fact that they got the best point differential in the league.
Yeah, like I think, Mike, you and me were texting today, and you said when the Texans lost their game that Seattle actually finished with the top scoring defense, I think it was.
Yeah. No, submitted an article today over at Field Goals talking about that. The Seahawks are that's not the only title they won in the last 24 hours. They are your 2025 NFL scoring defensive champs. 17.2 points per game. Pretty damn good, man.
It's impressive to see the turnaround. And I think, you know what, like part of this, and I think we can talk about it in a little bit, but I'm going to say it right now. Like if John Schneider does not win executive of the year, then the NFL has their, whoever votes or has opinions on that has say, you have your head buried up your own ass, because it's ridiculous. He didn't win it in 2012 and they gave it to Chris Ballard, I think it was, from the Colts, because he drafted Andrew Luck. Like, that took a lot of smarts to draft the number 1 QB prospect you'd seen since Peyton Manning. Like, let's be honest, you really sweated that one out there, Chris Ballard. No, not like John, who took Bruce Irvin in 2012 and then took Bobby Wagner, Hall of Fame generational linebacker. Oh yeah, and then 3rd round you get this quarterback that in 2 years leads you to a Super Bowl, which I know it's not all on Andrew Luck, but Andrew Luck never was able to do with the Colts, was get to a Super Bowl. Just saying, like, I think you might need to kind of open your vision on what an executive of the NFL does. And this is now, to be honest, 2 errors for John, where he has gotten a team to the number 1 seed in the NFC, one of the best records, potentially, in Broncos both won today, because then those 2 teams would have, what were their win totals at the end of the year?
For which ones?
Broncos and Patriots.
In which
14.
season? In 2014?
Yeah, this year. No, 2025. What did they finish with?
This year. Because you froze briefly, so I didn't catch it.
Sorry.
But, Patriots were 14-3 as well.
Yeah.
And Denver was also 14-3, but we kind of know that both of those teams have had much softer schedules than Seattle. No, but of course, New England's is still impressive. The fact that the turnaround, I legit forgot Gerard Mayo was the coach last year. I mean, that was about as forgettable. I sincerely forgot that he coached last year. And Vrabel has quickly turned that team around. But yeah, it's a good point. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's crazy to think about. If you guys remember, like the initial early stuff with the Seahawks head coaching search, there was a couple things from some sources and places that Vrabel and Schneider were close, and that like they were like tight. And I think everyone kind of knew, like if they really did get rid of Mayo after 1 year, which man, like what like a brutal move. But again, like it obviously worked itself out. Like Vrabel was going to go home. That was just always going to be the thing, unless Ohio State fired Day, but then Day saved his job, going to the national championship, winning it. Like, I mean, it sounds to me, and maybe this is like not being completely in the know, it just seems like Seattle either could have had Vrabel or McDonald, and like, man, either one probably would have worked out. And I think there's a real shot that McDonald might have gone to New England if that hadn't worked out. But you know, who knows? But like, it's just one of those fascinating stories of those two guys just. And now, we're 2 games away from possibly running into each other in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. And I think the one thing, too, when you look at what John did, he went after a guy that he had conviction about, brought in a guy in some respects. And this is, you know, I've said this on I think it was Dan's show yesterday. I said it on when we did our watch party and post game is there is a chance that Mike McDonald might have a better relationship with John than Pete did, because those two look like they're cut from the exact same cloth. And that's not saying anything bad about the John and Pete relationship, but even Dan said he had been to it on a professional basis to an event just 2 weeks after Mike and John had gotten together and were in Seattle as a duo now. And he said it was like those two guys were best buddies for years. Like they're so similar. This could be a real interesting second go of a Seattle Seahawks era coming here. And I'm interested to see how it goes. But let's talk about the game here, guys. And you know, we've talked a little bit about it, but you know what? Let's talk about the defense. And we talked a little bit about Nicky Manwari, but man, Riq Woolen last night. Like Riq, in my opinion, like you got to start having contract talks. Like the way he has played since his concussion and over this back half, like I think my favorite play of Riq's career might be what he did last night, where he chased that under route across the field. Juwan Jennings grabbed him and legitimately chucked him out of bounds for I think it was a 1 yard loss. And I was like watching it, I was like, it gave me Devin Witherspoon-esque chills from when he did that to the Steelers running back his rookie year and chucked him out of bounds. I was like, that to me just shows where Riq's confidence level is at. And he almost had the one pick on an earlier Purdy pass where I think maybe it was Tonjes that it was targeted and he just got his hands back in time. But if Riq had picked it, he was gone for 6. Like Riq Woolen is playing with such a different energy. He seems so locked in. And now with Nicky Manwari in the middle, Witherspoon on the other side, like his stats are leading to what I thought he was going to be at the beginning of this year, which was a top 5 outside corner, which he's playing like right now. Like both of these guys are playing unreal. Like you look at that and I say like Kobe Bryant was out, right? He's our starting safety, but Ty Okada has stepped in and played at the same level, if not better. Julian Love is back healthy. Like point to a spot on that defense and go, there's the weak point. There's the chink in the armor that we can exploit, because it used to be Seattle's ability to stop the run, and CMC last night didn't force one missed tackle. And I legitimately, guys, at points forgot he was even on the field. He was just so non-existent in that game.
Yeah, that's my biggest takeaway was the defense. If anybody who's watching the stream and not seeing, not playing the audio, I'm constantly looking at my monitor because that Ravens-Steelers game just went up to 11 out of nowhere. It was kind of a forgettable game, and then now the Steelers score. Zay Flowers is wide open for 2 straight touchdowns, and now Aaron Rodgers is trying to lead a game-winning drive over the last minute and 3. So maybe it was the right call to make this the Sunday night game. But anyway, the Seahawks defense, they had Kyle Shanahan in a Cobra clutch. I mean, he had no answers. And that's not the thing you often say about Kyle Shanahan or Sean McVay, is when they are truly out of ideas as to how to attack a defense. It's like McDonald knew every single thing that and consequently the players knew every single thing the 49ers would do. And to me, over the course of this season, and only this season, because there's the togetherness and you get a full offseason to install what you want to install, what amazes me most about this defense is how disciplined they are. Like how assignment correct they are consistently. How many coverage busts have you seen on a weekly basis? Speaking of coverage busts, I think the Steelers just won the division because Calvin Austin got the most wide open touchdown. And you know what? I'm kind of hoping that if the Ravens lose, when we're done recording this, I can peruse Twitter and other social media apps for the rest of the night, because you know exactly what they're going to say about the fact that they watched Mike McDonald masterclass on Saturday night. And there's now like a real good chance that these last 40 seconds or 55 seconds will be the end of the John Harbaugh era in Baltimore.
So this is something that's interesting.
The Lamar Jackson era, maybe?
I think that's another question. So, but before you guys go off on a little bit on that, but if you go and look at that,
oh my gosh, they missed the extra point. I'm sorry, I'll shut up, but they missed it. This game's nuts. They're gonna lose. Oh my god.
Here's the funny thing is that the Ravens and the Buccaneers, and I'm throwing the Buccaneers in this because they missed the playoffs as well.
Yeah.
Had two right now of the potentially best coaches in the NFL, because Liam Cohen, you got to give him his flowers. He did a phenomenal job in Jacksonville. This, I think, is more maybe going to lead to see firings and promotion if you have the guy in-house and doing it maybe a year early or maybe even 2 years early if you're in a rut. Because I think it's just so, we talk about the retread of NFL quarterbacks now, like the Sam Darnolds and the Baker Mayfields, where the experiment doesn't work. And that's kind of becoming a thing now in the NFL. Like, Malik Willis might make himself some money and get a starting gig this year. Mm-hmm. Even Huntley from the Ravens might, with what he's done over the past 2 years when he's had to step in, right? So now with coaches, it might be hey, we get off our aging head coach if we got a coordinator in-house that could be elite. And like, I look at, obviously 49ers, Rams, and Seahawks are in a different story because all three of their coaches are constantly innovating at their level. That's the one thing I think that's going to be the most interesting about Mike, is how he keeps evolving and innovating, because I don't think he's the type of coach where he's going to sit on his morals and just rest on and be like, yeah, what I do is great, and that's how we're going to stay. He is, not to say Pete did, but Pete kind of did. Like, cover three, and then, nope, we're going back. And you look what's happened in Vegas this year. You flip that to the other side of having an innovative coach. Like, if Mike McDonald was an offensive-minded coach, he'd be getting gushed over right now by everybody in the NFL national media. But because he's on the other side of the ball, he's kind of like, oh, yeah, he's a great defensive mind. It's like, no, this guy's legitimately a defensive genius. He is taking guys that are undrafted free agencies. Oh, what's going on in the game, Mookie?
Baltimore just hit a huge kick return to midfield. So they basically need 20 yards to win the game, as long as their kicker doesn't screw up.
No, I think you're right. Man. I think you're right, though, Bryce, talking about Mike. Like, he's a nerd, like, in the most like complimentary sense of the way. Like, he's a mad scientist. He's a wizard. I think anytime I write about him over at Field Goals, I just call him like the wizard, basically. And like, that's what he just reminds me of. And like, I mean, you want to get nerdy all you want, but like this dude, like, just seems like he constantly wants to learn and grow. I don't feel like we necessarily see the same couple blitzes every single game. Everything feels exotic. Everything feels fresh and feels new. And yeah, he's not the biggest blitzer. And there's some things that, like, even as a fan, even as like a person that's really in the know, I'm sure there's a lot that we're missing and stuff. And you can hear it from the players. Like, the way they talk about him, it is revered. Like, they understand that this guy is an absolute ball knower on the defensive side of the football, and that he is putting them in position to make a hell of a lot of money. And so they're playing hard for him because all of these guys on defense are about to make a hell of a lot of money because of him.
Well, it's one thing to be nerdy, but if you're a bad teacher, then I don't care how much you know your X's and O's if you can't get the players to do their job properly. Yeah. And he has them in place to succeed, such that other than the brief period where we were talking about Riq and should he be benched and all that, everybody else, it's just been, where are the liabilities on this team? Like, Tyrese Knight certainly struggled, but we can tell that the injuries, and he admitted it, the injuries played a role in how kind of off he looked. And McDonald has adjusted. And as I said earlier, before getting distracted by this game, the Seahawks defense looks consistently assignment sound. How often do you see terrible run fits? And if there is some blown assignment somewhere in the first level and against the run, is there a linebacker to clean it up or a safety to clean it up in the second level? Usually so. That's why they're so great at limiting explosive plays. So, last year there were some hiccups, but we should have expected that. But McDonald got his guys too. It's not just the fact that he's got a great system. It's the fact that he had an already good defensive roster, clearly on paper, but then added some guys throughout this offseason and through the trades last year with Ernest Jones to make this kind of the defense that he had envisioned. This is like an even better version of what he did in Baltimore as a defensive coordinator. And now he's the head coach. So he's even more in line with what you can talk to John Schneider, say, hey, I need this, this, and this. And you end up with Ernest Jones last year as a trade, Tank Lawrence in free agency, this offseason. It's all come into play basically as well as you could possibly have. And the 49ers and the Rams are the two big tests for how well has your defense evolved. Can you stop these guys? And your end result is, okay, you got ripped up by the Rams in the rematch, but in the first game, your defense shut them down. And you only gave up 21 points because interceptions led to 2 short fields. And then they had 1 legitimate touchdown drive. And then the 49ers, you held them to 17 in week 1. And that was with Trent Williams and Ricky Pearsall, by the way.
And then 2 miracle throws.
And 2, Woolen had some lapses, and that was kind of the difference in the game. And then in this one, even with all the self-destruct button stuff that the Seahawks offensive special teams was doing when they got deep into Niner territory, the defense just shut the Niners down so easily. They were scoring for fun the last few weeks. And what happens? 2 for 9 on 3rd down. Didn't convert on 4th down. Had 9 first downs total. Purdy, his air yards per attempt must have been under like 5. They had nothing going. And I don't think Pearsall, as good as I think he'll be, I don't think Pearsall would have made that much of a difference.
Yeah, I think Colin Cowherd said it kind of perfectly last night. That was the most clear and obvious mismatch that he can remember. And we're not talking about the Seahawks destroying, the Saints, right? That was a 12-win 49ers team that was trying to get the 1 seed at home. And Cowherd just said that you could tell one team was just so much faster, so much stronger, so much more physical. It was so apparent. And before the season started, I think we all agreed as the unbelievable, holy cow. As we started the season,
Wait,
I think
what has happened, Mike? What has happened?
Lamar's
I'm not
showing
watching the game.
Lamar on 4th and 7 at midfield just dropped a beautiful dime to
This is Isaiah Likely.
12
seconds
25,
left.
30 yards down the field. So it'll be a knock on wood, a chip shot field goal to make the Ravens get the division champs and get a home playoff game. Oh my goodness.
My God, what a way to fair play NFL. This game deserved to be the last game of the season.
So Bryce, TJ Watt missed a sack fumble by maybe a quarter of a second.
Oh, well.
But probably a foot and a half. He missed a sack fumble to win. So now it's 1st and 10 at the 24.
Yeah, I think somebody like Max Crosby would have gotten there in time. But, once he's acclimated to Seattle, that won't be an issue.
Yeah.
Oh,
so anyways, what I was going to say, I think before the year started, we all agreed that this secondary had the potential to be the best in the NFL because it was all right, well, Love's been amazing. Kobe Bryant's been really up and coming. It's time for Spoon to really take the next step. We really liked what Riq Woolen could do in a contract year. And just week 1 kind of made that whole thing go away because Emin Worry got hurt. Riq Woolen looked like he was going to get traded. The way Mike McDonald talked about it after the game and throughout the next couple of weeks was very much Riq is not in Riq Island anymore. He's he's in the doghouse for the future. And that has come back around. And Riq has turned into a guy that's going to earn $20 million a year, right? He kind of looks like that kind of player. And Bryce, like you said, he looks confident. He doesn't look like he's thinking as much out there. He's playing physical. He's playing fast. He's playing free. And maybe that is finally, you and I have talked about it. Maybe Riq and McDonald weren't a good fit. schematically. Well, right now it looks like a perfect marriage. Because again, the player that we saw yesterday, I don't know if we've seen that guy since like rookie year when Riq was just running around with his hair on fire, just trying to figure out where to go. And he was so athletically gifted that he just figured it out and he ran himself into a handful of interceptions. But while that has had to be remended and redeveloped and get guys healthy, I think the one thing none of us necessarily thought was, well, hey, what if our defensive line was the best in the NFL? And I think that, oh my gosh, he missed the field goal. The Steelers are NFC North champions.
Wow.
Yeah, wide
The
right.
Seahawks.
Why in the world, with one timeout left, would the Ravens just sit on that field goal and not run another play to get forward with a rookie kicker? So
Oh
I'll tell you
my
what,
gosh.
that means that DK Metcalf's suspension
Yes.
is no longer one of the more costly
wow.
suspensions in NFL history. And yes, that's probably the end of the John Harbaugh era, because the way Lamar played that fourth quarter, I ain't moving on from him.
Exactly.
Harbaugh, though, adios,
Oh
buddy.
my gosh.
That
Joe Brady to Baltimore.
Yeah.
Well, we'll talk about some of these coaching
Sorry,
stuff
hi.
near
Yeah,
the
this
end,
is the Pittsburgh
guys. So,
Steelers aftermath.
yeah, no kidding, right? Okay, so let's refocus. Let's refocus. The game's now over. Let's talk about the running game. And I get the 49ers are beat up. I get the 49ers don't have a great defense right now against the run, but this run game has progressively gotten better the back half of this season. From basically the Rams game in SoFi, it has gotten better. But last night felt like the first time they figured out how to run these two in Charbonnet and Walker. And for all the people that have sat here and told me Walker can't run between the tackles, he's only out, like, Walker had some of his best runs in between the tackles following Robbie Oots, which, by the way, please continue to use Robbie Oots in that way. Like, that's why you have a big fullback that can go. Now, you can leak him out to Kubiak and get him out in the flats and dump the ball to him and let him run with it a little bit. Might be a wrinkle, maybe coming that divisional playoff game. But honestly, like, I don't know how you guys felt, but that running game last night, like, there were points I was like, don't have Sam throw the ball again. Not that I don't want Sam to throw the ball, but it was like, you can just run the football and get 5 yards. Just keep doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the first drive told me all I needed to know how this game was going to go. And let's be real, this is not the 49ers defense we're used to seeing. They largely remade their defensive line even before the injuries hit. And you're dealing with rookies. You got Alfred Collins, you got CJ West, you got some other guys. So the run defense was stressed a bit, even in some other games this year. But that hasn't stopped the Seahawks from struggling to run the ball before against lesser run defenses. They were driving people back. And one of the things that has defined this rivalry in recent years is Seattle can't stop the run, meaning McCaffrey, or even the games McCaffrey doesn't play, they get destroyed by like Jordan Mason or Isaac Guerrero or whomever, and then they can't run the ball. They stop the run on defense, and they could have easily, on another day, had both Walker and Charbonnet go over 100 yards. Walker was 3 yards shy. Charbonnet was like 26 yards shy. It was more just the number of plays that were being run. They were constantly driving the 49ers backward. I like some of the wrinkles in the run blocking. I thought Jake Bobo, other than one bad play that is kind of on Walker, but also on Bobo, he showed his blocking.
Cut that inside, man.
He's got to cut. Yeah, he's got to cut it, to get the yard.
Okay, so here's my view of that whole play, because I was on the watch party with Dan on it, and everyone's saying, oh, he can cut inside, he can cut inside. As a running back, if your guy doesn't actually have any sort of true positioning, because it looked like Bobo was out there shadow boxing. Yes. Like, make a decision, Bobo. Take him and go left, or take him and go right if you're blocked. Like, don't just kind of bounce around and be like, jazz hands. Let's see if I'm going to get my hands on you. Like, engage, get him going a direction. Like, just stock blocking him out there and not even block, just stalking him. It's like, dude, make a decision. Like, I haven't seen anything from Bobo this year where I'm like, yeah, you were worth a roster spot. Like, I haven't. I'm going to be honest. And people may hate me for saying that because everyone loves their Bobo, but like, I think Cody White's played better, and it's unfortunate he hurt his groin. I think there was an opportunity for Ricky White to be on the squad in some respects. And Derek Young, I think, is a better potential receiver prospect than Jake Bobo. Like, that play infuriated me because it's like, if he does make the correct block, Walker might get the first down.
Yeah, and that was an unfortunate, and I think that was on the drive that Myers missed his first field goal.
Yeah.
But still, the running game, just getting back to that, it was moving people. The Seahawks dominated the trenches on both sides, and that's kind of a cliche thing to talk about when how is this game going to be decided? Well, it's another thing for them to actually do it. Like we knew that the Seahawks defensive line had an advantage over the 49ers O line, especially with Williams out. For the Seahawks offensive line to actually have an advantage over a non-Cardinals division rival for the first time in forever is kind of jarring to see. But you know what? It reminds me a tiny bit because the offenses are just fundamentally different in the run game. The 49ers run defense in 2011, 2012, 2013, it was rock solid. You couldn't do anything against Justin Smith, Alden Smith. I know there's some others I'm thinking of along that defensive line.
Bowman and
then, of course, Bowman and Willis. And so, and then the Seahawks play them, and the 49ers suddenly can't stop the run. Marshawn Lynch was the first guy to get 100 yards on the 2011 49ers defense. And that was a game Seattle kind of had to win to stay alive in the playoff hunt, even though that didn't matter in the end. 2012, Lynch runs for over 100 in both games. 2013, Lynch ran for, I think, 98 or something like that in the home win. And again, they had like 150, 160 yards. And Russell Wilson in the read option was giving San Francisco fits. So the run blocking was very good back then. And it looks so good in this game. It was the game that we thought we would get on opening day.
Yes.
So it's very much a better late than ever because we all got, so excited over the Chiefs preseason game. And then we saw what happened in week one. They had 0 explosive runs. Like they had nothing going in the run game. And then this was just a full-on ass whooping. And that Charbonnet touchdown, I just loved. Just the fact that Barner was able to wash out the safety. Charbonnet has a cut back to the outside, a little hesitation move, and Malik Mustafa ends up not making the tackle as the last man standing.
So beautiful.
Like how often have we seen Seattle have space like that for any running back? I don't care if it's Charbonnet or Walker, or if it's George Holani, or if it's Troy Maine Pope or George Farmer, or going deep down to the depths of the running back depth chart. Like that's been so infrequent for years now, and we got to see it in action.
So Bryce, quick question:
Yep.
How much do you think Sundell coming back has played a factor in the running game starting to improve?
That's a good question.
Because it does seem to be kind of correlated, right?
Well, no, because they did have that real stinker game when he came back. Which game was that? I'm trying to think of.
The Vikings.
I think it was the Vikings. They were awful running the ball in that game. It was basically the defense that solely kind of propelled that victory. This is what I'll say. I think what has occurred with Sundell, he still struggles at points. I think it's because of the lighter boxes now, and they really haven't played a true, and again, this is where, I remember the Tampa Bay game, Vita Veas, a true dominant nose inside. Derek Brown's good, don't get me wrong. But I think part of it's just the lighter boxes are making it a bit easier, right? There isn't that extra guy in there. And when you have that extra guy, now I will say this, in the game at a point there in about the second quarter, halfway through to about halfway in the third, Salah started to bring a guy down and just blitz him constantly. And it blew up the zone a few times on Charbonnet and on Walker. And then they corrected and went straight downhill, which is a lot better. I will say this, and this may be an interesting take, and I want to get your guys' opinion before we move on to the last topic, before we get to the 12s Q&As here, because there's a lot of them. I feel like center might be a more important upgrade than right guard this offseason. And the reason I say that is Anthony Bradford has actually played quite well, and I get there's some bad reps. There's always bad reps on film. Don't tell me about Anthony Bradford looked awful on this one particular rep. Yeah, we know. But they're getting farther and farther apart in games and between games. And not that Sundell's been bad. I'm not saying that. But the one thing that still sticks in my head is when Kubiak first got hired. And I think he was on KJR with his, how they do their interviews with the new coaches when they hire him after the press conference. And he made a comment where he said, someone asked him about, what's one of the most important things about this run scheme that you're bringing here? And he goes, it's having an elite level center. And when you look at what Kyle Shanahan did in Atlanta, he had Alex Mack. And he had an elite center early on in San Francisco. And he had Mack in Cleveland when he was in Cleveland there for that short stop. Even when you go back to Walsh's teams and you go back to the Seattle teams with Mike Holmgren, you look at a lot of these teams, you look at KC's run game really didn't start to come alive, even though they've had issues with backs. But when it was effective early in Mahomes' career, you had a good center. Then you got Creed Humphrey there, which still should be a Seahawk, and I will never let that go.
Go Sooners.
It's such a key part on this offense because if you're running zone and your center struggles either to anchor or either to turn the guy that he's got and try and get the leverage play, it can break the zone. And there's points where I still see Sundell struggle with that. Now, I think Sundell might be the better communicator maybe, and it gives Zabel some more comfort and stuff because Zabel didn't look as bad last night as he had. But again, that's kind of up in the air there. I'm not as angry at Bradford as I was, and the more I've watched 22 film of him, the more I've slowly been impressed. I think he is getting better. And again, I don't expect Anthony Bradford to be an all-pro, but he can be average. I think that's not a hard goal for Anthony Bradford to be average. Like, I think at points last night, one of our worst offensive linemen was Abe Lucas. I don't know if I'm crazy to think that.
Yeah, I thought that certainly that Charbonnet 3rd and 2 run where he ended up having to bounce to the outside. Saubert basically was tasked with blocking 2 people, and he could only block 1. And that's because the second guy was supposed to have been blocked by Lucas. And by him missing his assignment, Charbonnet, not exactly the same type of back who can bounce to the outside that quickly, make a guy miss. Lenore makes a good tackle. And didn't they end up punting as a result? So that was their only punt of the drive. So, yeah, Lucas has kind of worried me a little bit in terms of his anchor and his play strength in recent games, and that's for both pass pro and against the run. But he still had some good moments because they were running right side quite a bit on some of the more successful plays. But I'm glad you brought up Ray Zabel because shout out to him. It wasn't just him in the run game, but as an extension of the run game, the screen game actually working twice one night.
Right? Beautifully.
I had to double check to make sure that my television wasn't turned on to something that was AI generated because I couldn't believe it. 2 screen passes. I think Zabel was the lead blocker on the second one. The first one might have been Bradford, but Bradford didn't really have anybody to block. But Zabel just pancaked his dude, and Walker turned a short gain into a 14-yard gain. So Zabel was outstanding in this game. I don't really agree with the holding call that was put in against him. I didn't see a hold whatsoever, but maybe the all-22 could prove me wrong. This offensive line, it's not incompetent. That's exactly what I wanted. I'm not saying you have to be Walt, Hutch, Tobeck, Gray, and Locklear reincarnated. I'm not expecting the literal best offensive line in the league. But what I wanted out of this offensive line was competence. And there have been stretches of play where it hasn't been great, for sure. But as a whole, not only have they been competent, especially in pass pro, they're getting better in the run blocking, as you and Dan have alluded to just on the film lab. A lot of the stuff from the Panthers game ended up carrying over to this week.
Hot take. I don't think the Seahawks make any changes along the offensive line for 2026.
I think they'll make something. I think there'll be something will change on the interior between the center and the right guard position. One of those 2 spots. Now, I will say this. I don't know if it's through the draft.
Yeah, I guess maybe that's what I was. Yeah.
They may go free agency. They may go via trade. Like, I'll be honest. If Linderbaum somehow hits free agency, I would expect John to be that like crazy.
I'd be stunned if he gets out.
Somebody in the comments going from Holy Hand Grenade, do you really trust JS on O-lineman in free agency? I will admit, not the best history for the more notable linemen. Robert Gallery was like the first major obvious bust. But hey, the Josh Jones signing just as a backup, he has done his part. And I don't want anybody poo-pooing the cross extension because Josh Jones has looked all right these last couple of weeks. Like, if Josh Jones had to play a much stronger pass rush, then maybe we'd see why he's a backup. But just the fact that Schneider improved on the swing tackle position from Stone Forsythe last year and who was it, Fant, to Josh Jones, who's got versatility to play tackle or guard, that's improvement as far as I'm concerned. So
I got one other name to throw in there, Mookie. Mike Upati wasn't bad.
No, he wasn't. He almost ran the whole table of NFC West. He only didn't play for the Rams. And I think he's
when he
coaching
was here, he
Washington
wasn't
State's-
bad.
Yeah.
I don't think DJ Fluker was bad in 2018.
No, he was actually okay too in the run game. Like, so he's had some. Schneider, I'll put it this way: Schneider's never hit a home run. He's hit a lot of RBI singles. He's never hit a home run.
Yeah, another way to put it is he hasn't had the offensive line equivalent of Julian Love turning a small contract into an extension. Same thing with Chenna Nwosu turning his 2-year deal into another extension. So we're kind of, if it goes through free agency, something similar to that.
All right, guys. So last thing here to kind of talk about before we move into the conversation with the 12s. Darnold last night, no touchdowns, no turnovers, 20 of 26 for 198 yards. So basically 200 yards. Did you guys notice that Sam just looked like he was in control? Like his feet too. Like he didn't have the term happy feet or, feet going nuts kind of a thing. Like he went through his progressions, got the ball out. And the other thing I thought he did really well in this game, he escaped the pocket safely more this time. Like outside of that one sack on the play action call that don't even get me started on why the hell we called that on the first drive down on the 1 yard line. Don't even get me going. Outside of that, he escaped the pocket. He did use his legs a few times, but I liked how he was able to get up in the pocket and then out. Instead of trying to go out the back door like Rush used to, get up the field, go forward, and get outside. Like, outside of, obviously that everyone will talk about, oh, we missed JSN on that, roll to the left and it was almost intercepted. Yeah, that's a highly difficult throw to make. So being slightly off, it may happen here and there. But when there were layup throws, which this offense has built into it, he made those layup throws. And he also made some crucial third down conversions like the one who was right and hitting Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, there was little to fault with Darnold in this game. That would have been one hell of a slip there. Little to fault. If I wanted to use the word I actually used, that would have applied to the 49ers offense in that game. But when it comes to Darnold, yeah, there were a couple of plays. The Charbonnet miss on the first and goal of the one. I'm fine with the play call. I probably wouldn't call it on a first down. And also, why do they not use Barnyard on the 1 yard line like all the time?
Thank you.
Like,
Thank you.
The legit possibility that play could be illegal soon. It's like, use it while you can, smoke them while you got them. But anyway, like that to me was a miss. But maybe and I think Darnold kind of admitted it in the post game presser. But the sin to me was taking the sack. Like that's the one part of the field where I think that it's easy to throw the ball away even out of the end zone because it's really hard to commit intentional grounding that far down the field. And then even the play that almost got picked, I think that's kind of like a risky throw for time and score reasons. And he's been so good throwing to his left, and he just missed it. And Green wasn't that close to getting both feet down. But he was in control. He was, not used as a pejorative, a game manager. And by that, I mean he didn't make a lot of reckless throws. He didn't try to do a lot of hero ball. I think the wind kind of impacted both quarterbacks in terms of the velocity. It certainly impacted Myers' kicking, I believe, but certainly the fact that the deeper passes were kind of wobbling a bit may have affected, for example, the attempted touchdown throw to JSN that was pretty close to getting picked, and he ended up with JSN getting sandwiched. I think that in better weather conditions or in a dome, that might have had a better chance. But
even the in route, Mookie, the in route where JSN had to kind of contort himself back. That ball was behind slightly, but I think that more had to do with the wind that we saw.
Yes. Shout out to JSN.
Yes, that was phenomenal hands catch. But the check downs, he was getting to his reads quickly. He was making smart check downs and letting his running backs do some work in space. The third down conversions, as you mentioned, were key. I know they didn't score on the first drive, but that throw to Eric Saubert, who is not exactly a guy you go to very often throughout this season, that was just a calm throw. There was a late pressure coming, and he got to his next progression, and Saubert got free. Get it. I thought his best play was the third down roll to his right, scramble, and then throw it back across to Cooper Kupp. That was the backbreaker. Like, if that pass is incomplete or not for a first down or whatever, the Niners still have a fair bit more time and timeouts to use to try and get back in the game. Instead, you get Cooper Kupp, he gets some yards after catch, and the Niners have got to start using their timeouts. So Darnold had opportunities to make plays when he needed to, and he took advantage of most of them, and he didn't make any too many, plays where you go, that's really damaging the team and putting the team in jeopardy. Like when he lost the ball on the trip by Sundell,
Yeah.
that was a heads up play by Zach Charbonnet, but that would have just been like unfortunate. In the same way Reese Odiombo tripped Russ in that Falcons playoff game.
Yep.
It would have been more on just or Connor Williams tripping Gino in the Bills game last year. Misfortune. But Sam did what he needed to do. He played well enough to win, and we don't need him to be Superman every week. And frankly, the Seahawks didn't need Russ to be Superman as much during the Super Bowl runs. He certainly played a big role in the success, but it's not a case where Sam has to be the best quarterback in the league for this team to make a Super Bowl run.
I still look at Sam and I go, he is a top 10 NFL quarterback. I'm not saying he's top 5, but I'm saying he's a top 10, top 12 NFL quarterback. And I will take that with the defense we have, with the special teams unit we have, with the coaching staff we have. I don't need you to be top 5 Sam Darnold. I don't need you to be top 7. You can be a top 10 or 12 quarterback in the NFL, and we are going to win a lot of football games and be successful. Have him throw it 26 times. Going 20 of 26 for 200 yards. Sure, you add a touchdown in there, which maybe he hits Cooper Kupp. Okay. And we run for almost 200. We ran for over 200 yards, I should say. Or no, did we? Were we close to over 200 yards? 180, right? Yeah, but we had over 230 yards by the backs in total together with their receiving added into it. And that was the other thing. Like, Sam got to checkdowns to the running backs, which was a refreshing thing to see again. Like, hey, get Charbonnet, get Walker the ball out in the flats and let them do some damage with it. Like, I feel like this, even though the score doesn't indicate it, this again felt more of a complete offensive performance than we've seen, where we've seen kind of these broken moments where it's like, oh, the pass game's really efficient, but the run game's not there. Oh, the run game's great, but the pass game's not really doing anything. This felt like they complemented each other so well in this game that it's such a good sign to see that they get a week off, they can get healthier, and they can keep building on this.
Mm-hmm.
People are going to get mad, and I don't mean this disrespectfully. I actually mean this in a positive way. And I know, Bryce, I've told you this a few times on our show. I think that Sam Darnold is a 2025, like, souped up version of what Jimmy Garoppolo was in 2019. And I mean that in a positive way. I think you're talking about a guy that is in that top 8, 7 at his best, maybe even top 5 when he's amazing, which I don't think Jimmy was that good, but Sam, I think, has a bit more physical gifts that he is better than that. But he also does, like, Jimmy lived in that top 10 range. And people forget Jimmy Garoppolo is 4-2 in the NFL playoffs. People forget Jimmy Garoppolo, like, had a good defense and a good running game, and he was up 10, and his defense couldn't stop the Chiefs on 3rd and 15, right? Like, with a few minutes to go in the game. Like that, like, there's a world in which Jimmy Garoppolo wins that Super Bowl at the 49ers, and he might still be the quarterback now. I'm not saying he was a great quarterback, right? Or he's the franchise changing quarterback that can take you from 3-13 to 14-3, like a Drake May kind of is, or Josh Allen type. But there's a lot of similarities of, if you put him, man, you give him time, he throws a good ball. Like, that's kind of how I feel about it. If you can give him a good running game, you can get home playoff games. If you give him a good running game and you give him a good defense, well, he might play at home all the way to the Super Bowl. And that's what Jimmy Garoppolo did. Now, you go back and watch those playoff games. Garoppolo was never asked to do much until, at all of a sudden he's losing in that game. And if you guys remember, he had Emmanuel Sanders open down the field to win the Super Bowl, and he overshot that thing by 5 yards, right? He doesn't hit that throw, they lose the game. He hits that throw, the Niners might have won the Super Bowl. And who knows what that multiverse looks like. But what I'm kind of getting at is, I think Sam Darnold has some of those characteristics of, like, as long as he doesn't screw up, like, you're probably going to be favored in the next 3 games that you're in, right? That's how I feel about where we're going. Now, where I talk about the Garoppolo Darnold thing is, whether it's his fault or not, there's a black cat or whatever, something weird going on, where there's 3 to 4 plays a game in every single game that Jimmy Garoppolo has ever played his entire life, where something weird happens, or he makes a boneheaded play or a boneheaded throw. And I think Sam Darnold has a little bit of that Jimmy G in him, where it feels like 2, maybe 3 plays a game, maybe not as much as Jimmy Garoppolo does, but it's like, what are you doing? Why did you trip there? And it might not even be his fault. But I think we now have a 17-game sample size where it's like, oh, yeah, if you go back, that was a weird play. Oh, but then he throws a beautiful deep ball touchdown. Oh, that was kind of weird. Like, that could have been an interception. That deep ball to JSN, yes, the wind might have kept that thing up in the air a little bit too long. That also could have been a pick. The fumble is weird. But then you look up, and, like, I don't disagree, Bryce. I thought he played a really good game. I thought he played, like, an above-average game manager. And I think Colin said it on his podcast. They're running things where it just feels like he's playing pitch and catch right now. And maybe they've neutered him a little bit. I don't know. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that philosophy that they've neutered him. But, man, if the running game's that good and the defense is that good, the talent is there for Darnold, that if you can just survive those 3, oh, my gosh, what's happening moments or plays, then I feel good about our chances.
Well, I'll tell you what.
Chat Mike to lose their minds.
Oh my God! Is the reaction I'm seeing in the chat, including from Brandon Kane, who's in the chat.
Yeah, here we go. Brandon Kane, our buddy from the Hawks Nest and fellow syndicate member. I can't with the Jimmy Garoppolo comparison. I'm
telling you, man. I mean it in a complimentary way. So you guys are thinking about Jimmy G in his worst moments. I'm thinking about Jimmy G in his best.
So here's the thing I'll say about Sam. And this is the comp I've had for Sam, and it's kind of like a mixture comp. I've said he, in some respects, reminds me of a more athletic Matt Hasselbeck, because Hasselbeck could make a lot of the throws. He could move a bit. He could do things when Matt was at his prime, and he went through some turmoil. Remember, he got benched for Dilfer. He kind of went through that whole thing. Another guy that he reminds me of Rich Gannon. And Rich Gannon coming on in those Oakland Raider days, right? Playing in that West Coast offense that throws. And Rich Gannon, again, played at an MVP level, took a team to a Super Bowl. Rich Gannon never always lit the world on fire, though, outside of that season. Like, he was a good NFL quarterback, but he never lit the world on fire. And then the third guy, and Mookie, I kind of want to get your thoughts on this. The other guy he kind of gives me vibes of is Trent Green. And when Trent Green got to Kansas City.
Trent Green? Yeah.
See, I don't like any of these comps because none of those guys won a Super Bowl. What are we doing here?
Okay, I get that, but my point here is when I look at what Sam does well.
Yeah.
Sam, both in all 3 cases of all those guys, at points they led their teams to being top seeds at points in their conference. They also, 2 of them, led their teams to Super Bowls in a similar style of offense. But the thing with Sam that I think he has over all 3, I think Sam is a better athlete than all of them and has higher talent levels than all of them. He was a top 3 pick coming out of college. He has an elite level arm. And the thing I have over all those guys, when outside of Matt, when Matt started playing well, it was about the same age Sam is right now when he started to play well for the Seattle Seahawks in that 05 run that we had. But Gannon and Trent Green didn't really hit their peaks until they were in their 30s.
Yeah, and
Sam's only 28 years old. And that's where I look at Sam and I go, there is still so much room for growth. And that's why I find it so hilarious when people want to jump on the dude and say, oh, he sees ghosts. He was a 21-year-old kid in the worst franchise that, again, has the number 2 overall pick. That is, like, I think, averaged a top 5 pick since they drafted Sam Darnold, and can't get the quarterback position right, can't get the organization to function right. And we're harping on a 21-year-old kid for not being successful with a team that's never really been successful. Like, it just doesn't work. And then he goes and he finally gets some coaching from a legit coach in Kyle Shanahan, and then by Kevin O'Connell, and now in Seattle. And it's like, oh, wait, like, this guy can actually play football. Like, he's actually a good quarterback. And all quarterbacks have shitty moments. Peyton Manning threw a game-losing pick 6 in the Super Bowl. All of a sudden, Peyton Manning didn't become the worst quarterback in football when he threw a route that Tracy Porter sat on and took it back because he knew what was going on. Like, guys have their moments. Brady was undefeated and lost in a Super Bowl to Eli Manning. Like, it happens. But to try and pigeonhole a guy and say he's a bad quarterback or he's a good quarterback, just, it seems so irrelevant to me when the guy is winning football games. He's able to make clutch throws when you need him to do. And football, again, is a team sport. It requires all 53 guys on your roster to win a football game. not just the one guy. And I get wins and losses are a quarterback stat. Still think that's stupid, but it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Sam Darnold contributes to the Seattle Seahawks being 14-3. If you take Sam Darnold off this team, you put Geno Smith back in, you put Drew Lock in there, you put Aaron Rodgers, because he was mentioned as a guy that we were potentially going to have as a quarterback at one point or another this offseason. Do you think Seattle is 14 as number one seed in the NFC? I don't.
Mm-mm.
I think we're sitting where San Francisco is at best, or Green Bay.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was just my rant. Michael, you didn't trigger me, but you quasi-triggered me a little bit. So I had
it's fine. Like, I think you've talked about it. Like, we're talking about some good quarterbacks. Like, again, I know people hate the Jimmy G comp, and like, that's fine. I was trying to say, I think that's his absolute floor right now, which is a guy that can go win the Super Bowl. I think Sam Darnold is a noticeably better quarterback than Jimmy G was. And I think one of the comments on here was really good of like, which again, I think I just fell for it, and maybe we all did a little bit, but it's like, let Sam Darnold be Sam Darnold, right? And that's the other kind of interesting thing is like, he's had a crazy journey. Like, I don't want to say like Disney movie journey, but maybe like Amazon Prime, like level documentary type of journey of like his story from the Jets and everything in between to now. And he's going to play in his first home playoff game, right? Like, that's crazy, but he's also someone that's already experienced a playoff game. And I think that is going to be massive advantage and a good thing for him to have already gotten that out of the way. But also there was a comment in here that I think Mookie, you and I were both laughing the same one. Yeah. Like, this is a redemption arc. And one of our guys he called it the redhead redemption.
Yep.
Very good. Very good.
And like, that's perfect. That's what they're going to name like NFL Network story of the 2025 Super Bowl champion Seahawks. Like, there's going to be a chapter and it's going to be the redhead redemption. It's just Darnold. Yeah. And Darnold. Is that
there was something I saw the other day about it where it was called like the Darnold identity or something, because Kyle Shanahan and Purdy like helped make him into what he is, and he's like coming back to wipe them off the face of the earth, which kind of did in a way. So it was kind of an interesting one. But all right, so with that being said, we've gone through all that. Let's get into the 12's Q&A blitz, because I got to be honest, there's almost 1,000 of you guys in here tonight, which is amazing. Thank you so much for being here. And if you guys haven't already, you're new to the channel, which I know a few of you are because I haven't seen your names before, just subscribe to the channel. Doesn't cost you anything. Don't even click the notification. It literally will just allow this video to sit at the front when you guys click into your YouTube. Helps me out, helps get the show out there, helps the algorithm. So again, appreciate all of you guys being in the chat and being a part of this. So let's start here with our first one. And actually, this is an interesting one right off the top. So Amy was in here earlier. I moderated the chat going, those of you in the chat from the watch party, did you enjoy it? And that's what I wanted to ask. Yesterday, me and Dan did our first live watch party of the game. We're contemplating doing another one in the playoffs. So you guys got any feedback or anything like that, feel free to put it in the comments. Always appreciate your guys' feedback from that. Big Mike comes in when we were talking about injuries. He goes, yeah, but we had Cross and Bryant out, Bryce. This is very true. We did. And we ran Rackshaw all over those 49ers. So I do think, however, Trent Williams, is a pretty significant loss for them. And the reason I say that is he also sets a tone for that offense with his physicality. It's
psychological.
Like, he's a big dude. Like, he is a guy you don't want to see in a dark alley or he's the guy you want to take with you into a dark alley if you're unsure where to go, just because of his presence. But again, I don't know if he's in there, if that game is still any different in some ways, because Seattle was just so dominant on defense. Like, I don't think Trent Williams is a 10-point player for the 49ers. Do you guys feel differently?
A lot of the pressures were not on
the
side. We're not on Pleasant side. I mean, the last one where Hall crunched Purdy was, but like, I mean, it was a complete meet at the quarterback, but he was getting pressured internally. I mean, with the on the interior rather. Like, even Worry hit him on a little blitz there. I think the Nwosu sack, I believe, was just him just getting a chase down. Jaron Reed was definitely on the right side. DeMarcus Lawrence came through on the interior, I believe. I was either on the interior or the right-sided edge on that 4th and 1. So Williams is definitely important to this Niners offensive line. He's a future Hall of Famer. He's got the largest dogs I've ever seen. If you know Trent Williams' story and his love of the really big, terrifying dogs, But you know what? Hamstrings for big fellas especially, that's not going to be an over. I know Shanahan's saying, like, if this game was on a Sunday, maybe Trent would have had a chance. I don't think it would have healed that quickly. So you're going to Philadelphia next week. And if you thought Seattle's defensive line was scary, well, the only other one that's basically in the same ballpark as Seattle right now is Philadelphia's. And that is going to be a nightmare for them where, yes, the Eagles' offense is painful to watch, but it might be not so painful if that run defense doesn't improve because Saquon could go looking like the offensive player of the year again.
And it's cold. That's going to be the other thing. And dealing with a hamstring, trying to keep it warm enough, especially if you're injured and keeping it that way, it can be tough. So we got Crunchy Fishhead. We need to re-sign Woolen, in my opinion. And there's some other chats about that. I think it's going to be interesting to kind of get the vibe. But I'll say this. I'm in favor of signing Riq Woolen. I'm not in favor of breaking the bank for Riq Woolen.
I'm in favor of re-signing Woolen, but if they don't re-sign him, I have to take a look at the cornerback market because, see, Job is also a free agent, right? So you don't want to risk losing both because Job is just a fine, but to me, a replaceable corner. But I don't want it to be where you're kind of restarting at that position where it's Spoon and then, silhouette and silhouette trying to figure out what to do there because Nehemiah Pritchett might have looked better in year 2, but I'm not anticipating that he's going to have that same level of effectiveness as the others have. And Riq, I think, has clearly carved out a role in this defense with McDonald ever since that little lineup shakeup. This nickel and dime, especially when they go with 6 DBs, and you have 3 corners, you have Woolen, Job, and Spoon all on the field. It suits Woolen the best. So, it took a bit, but they finally found where he fits well, which is to say, not in every snap corner, but somebody who's playing at least half of the snaps.
One side note here, I forgot to mention earlier in the show, and Mookie, to your point, I do agree with you on that. Bobby Wagner got 2,000 career tackles today.
Good for him.
I don't know if he plays again after this year, but that dude is an instant. In my opinion, his jersey number should be retired in Seattle and be in the Ring of Honor as soon as they can. Class A human being and absolute Hall of Famer in my book is a first ballot going in out of that Legion of Boom group.
Yeah, this is kind of an odd day. I mean, it's very possible that Wagner could get the all-time tackles record if he plays another year. But let's say he doesn't and he's not chasing records. Today could have been the last day for Bobby Wagner's career, Tyler Lockett's career. Absolutely no chance any team is hiring Pete Carroll for a head coaching job again. And he won in the most Pete way possible, a 14-12 game in which there were no touchdowns. So, yes, last day for him. And I also think it's the last year. It could be the last time we see Russell Wilson on an NFL roster.
Yeah.
I think it's possible he retires too, because if you're in a healthy scratch on that team, on that Giants team, no team is going to pay him to start. And he's probably not going to be interested in holding a backup role. He was already doing TV for CBS during the bye week. So this could be the way this season has gone. It's like this is the real breaking of the previous era Seahawks football and the start of a new one.
Here's the interesting thing too. Matt Ryan is rumored to be in a position potentially for the Atlanta Falcons. He currently sits on that CBS sports panel or football panel. Does Russ just slide in that one quarterback spot and take over from Matt Ryan on that panel with Nate Burleson and Bill Cowher? I think it's plausible, but we'll have to see how that goes at the end of the year. Seattle Playbook from our Twitter side of things. And again, if you're watching this on Twitter, feel free to comment. They do come through on here. So this is one of them coming up here from our X side over there. Glad John's been through both eras. Hopefully he can get us to dynasty levels better than he did with the LOB. Got a younger coach to do it with.
Man, we're already asking for dynasties before we even win a championship. I love it. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we're at right now.
I will start with one and then work our way up, because it's because we only got one with the last group that I think this fan base has been a little bit ornery at times in recent years. So
would you guys, really quick, would you say if Seattle was to win the title this year, would you say that kind of falls in line maybe with like the equivalent of us winning the Super Bowl in 2012 if we had won it that year? I think we all kind of agreed this does feel a year early, right? I think we kind of all felt that way. Now the numbers tell us it's not, that this is the best team in football, clearly. And I think by the end of 2012, the numbers said a similar story. I just kind of wonder, like if you do get it this year, I do think you actually can start, like, even if they win the Super Bowl this year, I still think there's all the reason in the world to go trade for Max Crosby to get, like, I don't think you stop because you win it all this year. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's fair. I think, like, yeah.
Because I would say the 2013 year was the first of a legit 3-year window, maybe 4, if Earl doesn't break his leg in 2016. And that was 2 Hall of Fame level drafts, which maybe that's what has happened here the last 2-3 years with the Seahawks. I just kind of wonder if this is, I thought the whole year this was, you get to the divisional or conference championship, you lose, you get the extra piece, and then you finish the job next year. But we kind of skipped a step. We keep skipping steps. And so it's like, maybe we just skip the whole thing and get to Santa Clara.
Yeah,
so, I don't know.
It's all
just
possible.
kind of like an interesting thought.
You know what? The football the sports in general is too volatile to bank on just having the same health luck that the Seahawks have mostly had this year, and expecting the same level of performance from some of our older veterans. That like, if you have a chance to get it now, get it now. Remember Dan Campbell, after they blew that championship game to the 49ers, said that might have been our only shot, and he's looking very much on the money. I don't know how many good years they're going to get out of Goff, for example, before, and Taylor Decker might retire. They're going to have to remake that offensive line. So you as much as it'd be cool to live in the Madden world where you've got so much control over certain things that can turn the injuries off, like, if you've got that chance, you take that chance. I mean, another sport, but like the Indiana Pacers were that close to beating the Zombie Sonics in the finals. They're the worst team in the Eastern Conference this year because of so many injuries and everything that they got to forfeit this year. So get it now. And in this window with Sam Darnold, I think you've got the team to just make that run, a 2013 type run.
All right. Brian Myers in the chat. Always like to have Brian in here. Goes, Oots was strong yesterday also. That was probably Robbie Oots' best game. That was the first time I looked at Robbie Oots and went, you're starting to get how to play fullback now in the NFL.
Yeah, and notice Clara was inactive. And it's not like Calarop's been bad or anything, but there are times where he has looked like a rookie. And Oots is a rookie too, but Saubert is better at his job right now than Clara. And Oots is now getting more involved in the offense again.
I think it's interesting because the thing you can do with Robbie Oots, I think that gets forgotten about because he's been designated as a fullback so far this year, is he can play that tight end. He can do some of the stuff that Kyle Juszczyk can do, where you can actually move him as your other motion tight end if you're in what would look like an 11 personnel look, or an 11 personnel. You can use him as the guy that's the extra slot / moving him into a 12 personnel look because of what he does as a fullback. So he's definitely going to be an interesting factor, I think, in the playoffs, and maybe get more and more involved in the offense as we go here. And we've got Randy in here with a $2 donation. Goes, was Earl the last first-round pick extended before Cross? I think he was.
Yeah, has to be.
Because Jermaine Ifedi never got extended.
We didn't have many first-round picks.
That's true. We didn't have that either.
We
right?
had that stretch, and they didn't pay Brooks, and LJ Collier didn't quite meet the standards to be extended. The sack sensei himself. I think at this rate, Byron Murphy and Spoon and JSN are going to be next in line. So, like, Cross is going to set the precedence for future extensions.
Yeah, agreed. So, all right, next one in here. We got Big Mike in the chat. Goes, for $5, we are finally bullies again. Yes, we are. We came in with the big baseball bat and smashed that 49ers skull in.
Drake Thomas, I'm not wishing injury on players because Juwan Jennings is a tough dude.
Oh, and he hit him.
He smashed him. It landed really hard in his shoulder. And of course, it's Juwan, so he came back into the game. But like it's not anywhere near Cam on Vernon Davis or anything like that. This is not as violent a defense as a Legion of Boom, I would say, and maybe the rule changes kind of affect that. But the way that they tackle is so aesthetically pleasing.
Oh, well, I was going to say, they've actually better over the back half since the bye. They're missing some tackles they should be making, and now it's like they don't miss anything. Like, I just saw the Nick Evenward tackle on Kittle. Like, it wasn't like he just hit Kittle and stopped him, he literally chucked George Kittle.
Yeah.
And then got up and, talked his shit, which he had every right to do, which, by the way, on a odd other note, did you guys hear Trey McBride today?
No.
It got so there was a play, I can't remember exactly what happened, but the mic was hot and it caught Trey McBride and he goes, boom, mother effer, I'm him. And you could like hear it clear as day on the broadcast. And even the broadcast crew was like, yeah, well, Trey McBride's fired up today.
Yes. Hey, man, that was funny when the Rams were struggling with Arizona for a bit, and then reality set in, I guess. But whatever gives the Niners a tougher matchup, I guess.
Well, I got a feeling we're going to see the Niners in the divisional round. Personally, I think that's going to be the case. So here we go. CK Seahawk comes in. Just remember, we're the third youngest team. Yeah, that's also a scary thing. We are super young on this team. Definitely. We got Flight in here going, Mookie's the computer. As always, Mookie is our guy. He's the only person I struggle playing NFL trivia with. So, Mookie, I got a question for you. Since you are that way, have you ever played Immaculate Grid?
Yeah, I play. I haven't played it recently, but I love playing it. It's just hard for certain areas to get that really low percentage
rare
score.
Player. Oh, I know. It's one of the every day I get the daily email update and I go and play my round of it for the day, and it's just like my 15-20 minute coffee break thing, and it's one of my little like pet hobbies to do. So
yeah,
we got HMY in here goes, did you guys see that Raheem Morris was fired? Wouldn't be surprised if he goes back to the Rams as DC if Shula leaves. Yeah, the Raheem Morris experiment and the GM there did not last more than the 2 seasons. And I don't think Arthur Blank will ever hire Raheem Morris again.
Yes, I think he stopped at 2. He's not going to do it a third time. Nobody is going to do that at Atlanta. But, that winning streak was cool. And thank you to Atlanta for beating the Rams and also winning out to make sure they don't have a free top 10 pick next year. But, like, that offense way underperformed. And the special teams directly cost them several games. And basically, the Seahawks game blew open because they had a field goal blocked and they got the Shaheed kick return touchdown. So Morris is just not cut out to be a head coach, man. So like, he might be a fine defensive coordinator, and his assistants bomb too. Like, I'm sure Zach Robinson is going to not get retained. And the Jimmy Lake hiring last year was perplexing. And of course, they had to can him. Their defense got way better after Jimmy left.
How about that GM though, huh? Taking Kyle Pitts over Penei Sewell, Micah Parsons, Jamar Chase. Not telling your owner that you're going to take Michael Penix with your top 10 pick instead of taking Byron Murphy like you should have. And I'm not trying to shit on Michael Penix, but like you take Byron Murphy there, who knows where you're at.
Yep, this is very, very true. And, it also helps that they did such a good job winning at the back end that kind of tanked the Rams draft pick just slightly enough for us.
Is that pick 13 now, I think is what I heard?
16.
16 in a shitty draft. That's...
Yeah, thank you,
and
Atlanta, for that.
James Pierce just finished having a fantastic rookie season, by the way.
Yeah. It's actually ended up being not bad for Atlanta. To give up next year's first for in a weak class for James Pierce this year. The only reason why we're so pissed about it is because it went to the Rams. If that pick went to the Tennessee Titans, nobody would care. But because it went to the Rams, it's like, man, is Atlanta really the type of team that should be confident they're going to make the playoffs? So, yep.
All right, we got Brandon Kane from the Hawk Nest in here with a big $50 donation. Thank you, Brandon. I feel like we're just kind of passing this money back and forth right now, buddy. But again, always appreciate it, Brandon, and appreciate your support. If you guys haven't, make sure hop over to the Hawk's Nest. I'm sure most of you already subbed up over there, but if you're not, go show Brandon some love. He does absolutely fantastic work over there, and he's also one member of the Seahawks Syndicate. You got 2 of us on here tonight. The other 2 are Brandon and Dan VN. So make sure you guys check out Seahawks Syndicate shows when they come out. And I think we're going to be doing them weekly over the playoffs here, which will be fun. Brandon goes, you trusting Riq after you pay him. He has me worried, though he has improved for sure. This is why I wouldn't break the bank for Riq Woolen. I am intrigued about paying him, but I would not break the bank for it. And this is where, again, it'll be interesting to see what kind of market Riq does demand, because I don't think it's going to be an extension by the end of the season.
Yeah, I don't think an extension would involve him getting anywhere near Pat Surtain money, especially when you're not playing the snap count of a Pat Surtain or a true shutdown outside corner. So I'm fascinated to see how those negotiations go, because the 2022 class, and we got a super chat that we'll get to later. Like, they got Cross, they got Lucas. Now the two remaining big questions for this class, and I could be forgetting somebody, so I'm off the top of my head, are Walker and Riq, because I'm going to forget about Maffei's not getting an extension. He's just not. So it's down to those two. And I also don't think Kobe stays. So we could say three,
No.
but I'm pretty sure it's down to Walker or Riq. I don't think they keep both.
So here's my question about that. One thing you did bring up there about Kobe Bryant. And again, thank you, Brandon, for the donation. Who do you start in the divisional round if both Okada and Kobe are healthy? I would lean Ty.
Yeah.
Like, I would lean to Ty. I think Ty has actually played better. I think that's an interesting thing to see over the next few weeks here. Do they go back to Kobe when they come to the divisional round, or do you just keep rolling with Ty? Because Ty's played, I think, the most snaps of any of the safeties this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a good problem to have.
It
We
very much
literally
is.
never had this problem before at safety
No.
position. Like the days of, okay, Earl's
Steven
out,
Terrell.
but it's Steven Terrell time, or Kelsey McRae, a favorite of mine for reasons I don't even quite understand. But like we had, Jerron Johnson was at least a decent special teamer, and then they moved Shed from safety to corner, didn't they? So like the safety depth for years under the Legion of Boom era.
Hey, you're forgetting the next version of the Legion of Boom in Delano Hill and Tedrick Thompson. Let's not forget that group.
Oh,
don't forget
dude,
Mike, the other Mike Tyson.
yeah.
Oh gosh, the other Mike Tyson. Yep. Oh,
I remember
man.
the Tedrick
that era
Thompson.
of Seahawk DBs is just like, Bradley
Remember when he got
McDougal
John
was a part of
Ross?
that group.
McDougal might as well have been a Hall of Famer as a reserve safety compared to everybody else they played.
Oh, 100%. But
Yep.
just like, that's where we're talking about. Like, Bradley McDougal was like one of the best at that point in time through that rough patch there of Seahawks safety depth.
Mm-hmm.
Oli Sasquatch in here. I think Riq has finally seen the team is going somewhere and it's lit a fire in him. Maybe. We got Dennis in here. This is interesting. I have yet to watch this interview, but I can't remember which show it was on. But Riq went on and did an interview. And this is what I've seen a couple of times where Dennis comes in and goes, watched a great interview with Riq. And he was saying it was a little hard to go from Pete and pick up Mike McDonald's defense. And he said lately he's understanding Mike McDonald's defense. So this is something I noted in the watch party, that Riq's technique has changed at corner recently. There's a lot of things he's doing differently now that he hadn't done in the past. And I think that's maybe attributed to some of his success. So we got Crunchy Fish Head in here. I think Mike McDonald has really grown into the job. He understands his own weaknesses and how to use his assistants to mitigate them. I think the biggest thing that's helped Mike McDonald in year 2 is having a full offseason with Leslie Frazier on how to actually, again, grow as a head coach. Because Leslie Frazier, I think, is such an underrated piece of this coaching staff.
Mm-hmm. It's a very complete coaching staff. A mixture of younger guys who are just kind of getting their footing into the sport at this level, and a lot of veterans like Frazier or John Benton, for example. So yeah, they've just kind of nailed this offseason coaching staff overhaul on the offensive side of the ball. At the very least, they kept pretty much everybody on defense, but they had to nail the offensive staff. And I'd say, is it perfect? No, but if you're looking for perfect, like, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. So they nailed that. That's another reason why Schneider should be executive of the year. Executive of the year.
Agreed. All right, we got Barb in here. Mike Mack is a football guru, in my opinion. I agree. Totally. He is one of the top minds in football right now. And I think there's a chance he could go down as one of the top minds in football ever.
Mm-hmm. I hope that is the case.
That'd be cool. So would this. This would be awesome.
Jason James back in here. Always love having Jason in the chat. He goes, I want to see Pittsburgh or New England in the Super Bowl. If we're to believe we owe them a true whooping. Oh man. Who out of that matchup, which one would you guys rather see? Not based on the team that is this year, but the organization as a whole, because I know who mine is, and I want to see Pittsburgh again.
I want to see Pittsburgh. I want to see Aaron Rodgers get a shot to get his second, and I want us to see him Peyton Manning him
Crush
again.
it.
Peyton Manning
Exactly.
him. Like, there would be nothing.
Well-
I'm a big Drake May guy, and I'm a big Mike Vrabel guy. It'd be really cool to play the Patriots again, but like Aaron Rodgers and DK Metcalf.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. DK in the Super Bowl to then have Seattle crush his Super Bowl dreams. And again, I love what DK did, but the exiting was a little odd. And again, to watch Aaron Rodgers lose a Super Bowl in his home state and team, like playing where he grew up watching. Well, I know it's not exactly because he grew up watching games at Candlestick, but
This
just
is
to
starting.
end.
This is starting to sound a lot like Jerome Bettis in Detroit. Maybe I don't want this.
Nah, maybe.
No, well, I have a strong feeling. And first of all, I would go with Pittsburgh as well. New England doesn't have the same. They're great. They're having a great season, but they don't hold the same weight without Belichick and Brady.
Yes.
So it's like the natural need to dislike and want to beat the beast, slay the dragon. It's not the same with these guys, at least not yet. But with Pittsburgh, I have a strong feeling that Houston will take care of what Baltimore failed to do. Like Pittsburgh is going to lose next week, and if Pittsburgh somehow makes the Super Bowl, and the Seahawks do play them, Seattle would be at least a 2-touchdown favorite.
That's fair. We got a dip to Hawks in here. Goes, hey Sonny and Michael Corleone. Yeah, are doing a show along with Michael Thompson. Cool. Love to see Seahawks Syndicate the other day. Yeah, we got to figure out who all our characters are. Hey, Mookie, it's something we got to figure out here. I will say this. If we make it to the Super Bowl, and we will definitely be doing a Seahawks Syndicate show, I will actually dress up as close as I can with the clothing that I do have in my wardrobe to a mobster for that Seahawks Syndicate.
Oh my God. Yeah, we got to figure this out.
I
got to change my wardrobe.
All right, we got Brandon came back in. Goes, Ravens might move off him this offseason, Kelly, and it might be Dolphins from bad to worse.
So is
Maybe.
he talking about Lamar?
I think so. I think
Because that's been the
talking about
rumor is
here
that
in the chat.
Lamar and the Dolphins may be talking.
Yeah, I could see it. I could see there being a blow up in Baltimore, right? Like you've progressively gotten like they are where we were 2 years ago, I think now with John Harbaugh and that kind of group. They just didn't ship off Lamar. They have him still where we had moved off Russ. We had kind of gone to a different quarterback, but the coach and the purgatory was still there. They are now stuck in that.
Yeah, and to not win a division as poor as this one, I mean,
Yeah.
I know Lamar missed so much time, but like this is clearly not a cohesive team right now. And the decline of this defense, boy, if they only had somebody on the defensive staff who could really just coach them up into something more stingy than the one that just let a DK Metcalf-less Steelers offense have the most wide open receivers we've ever seen in crunch time.
So it was really funny. A buddy of mine sent me a text that I had sent him. Oh gosh, this would have been like, I think 2021. Mike McDonald was still the DC. It was his last year at Michigan. And I was watching a game and I texted him. I said, man, like if Seattle's going to move off Pete, because there were rumblings, I was like, they got to go hire Mike McDonald from Michigan as their head coach. Like he is just the guy. And then he ended up going to Baltimore, becoming their DC. And he said, he's like, well, you were a few years later, but he's like, you had your eye on this guy back when he was still in college. And I was like, damn, I completely forgot how high I was on Mike McDonald when he was the DC at Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
We got Crunchy Fish back in here. Goes more Barner. Yes, please. More Barner. John Carlson in the aggregate.
One seam pass is all I ask.
Yeah,
one. Just one.
Oh, John Carlson down the seam to win the NFC Championship game would be so good.
It kind of like
make me consider
Texans game where Jimmy had the game-winning touchdown.
Exactly.
Yep.
We've got Mitch in here. Goes, who can the Hawks play after the bye? So they can play everybody except for the Bears or Eagles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we could know by Saturday night because the schedule's already out. So the Packers and Bears play Saturday night. If Green Bay wins that game, and look, Chicago and this close game stuff, they are walking on eggshells as far as like that stuff can run out on you fast. Look at the Vikings from a few years back. If the Green Bay wins, we're going to get the Packers in Seattle again, just like in the 2014 season. If all the road teams lose, meaning the Rams, 49ers, and Packers, it's Carolina against Seattle. Just like in 2014 when the Panthers were sub 500, beat what was left of Arizona, and played Seattle in the divisional round. So if I had to rank my favorite to least favorite, it'd be Carolina, Packers, 49ers. Sorry. Yeah. Carolina, Packers, 49ers, and then Rams are distant fourth as far as teams I don't want to play.
I got a weird feeling we may also play the Packers.
I told you last time we were on. I think
just because I don't know if the Bears are going to be able to, like, to your point, Mookie, you got me thinking a little bit now that maybe because Love has had some playoff success. Let's, not forget that. There's a chance maybe if they can get healthy enough, like Josh Jacobs gets healthy enough, they can run the ball a bit. There is a chance. So it'll be interesting. We got a couple more donations here we'll get to and wrap this show up here shortly, everyone. Jay Gundy comes in with a $2 donation. Harbaugh to the Cardinals. I don't think the Cardinals. Now, again, if John Harbaugh is fired, I could see maybe them firing Gannon to replace him with Harbaugh. I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts?
That's where veteran coaches used to go to retire. So maybe
Arizona's got an addiction to former Steelers, and Harbaugh doesn't fit the description.
This is fair. Okay, we got a $5 donation from Keith and Bernie the Unbeaten. As a Niners fan, still not sold on Sam Darnold, but I talked my shit and y'all won. I want to congratulate Seattle and say you guys were the better team. Appreciate it. And I can understand that from a point of view of not totally being sold on Darnold until he wins a playoff game and there's all those things. I've seen enough from him in winning games that he needed to win, the Rams game, this Niners game, and some others, that I think Sam is on the right trajectory now. And actually, Keith comes back here and goes, another $2 donation. Good luck and congrats on the bye. We'll appreciate you, Keith. Hopefully we'll see you.
Eagles.
Yes, good luck against the Eagles. I think there is a chance that the Niners do beat the Eagles. If they can get somewhat healthy before now and then, maybe Trent Williams and Ricky Pearsall do make it back. So that'll be an interesting one. We've got another donation in here, another $2 donation from Randy. Falcons clean house. Throw the bank at Kirby Smart.
No.
I don't think he's an
there's a
NFL
reason
coach.
why college coaches jumping to the NFL has got like such a low success rate. Like not everybody Pete or Jimmy Johnson.
No. Just
yeah,
no.
This is that's not going to work.
I don't think I've ever seen you give such a profound no so quickly, Mookie. It was just no. This is not happening on Mookie Alexander's watch.
Yeah, the next college coach to get a job will either be Freeman or Lanning. It'll be the Oregon coach, Lanning, or it'll be Freeman from Notre Dame.
I don't know. You know, one name I'm going to throw in there is the guy in Indiana right now. Because he's a more mature coach. I could see it.
Yeah, maybe. It'd be interesting, him with the Giants. Isn't he from that area?
That could be.
Can't remember.
Yeah,
don't forget, Lane Kiffin can always ditch LSU in the middle of the season and take an NFL job.
That's fair. Brian Myers back in goes, don't see drafting another O-lineman next year. Lots of options that might upgrade the line next year. I think he was going to say in free agency.
I don't think they're going to draft one early. So
no,
that's at which point? Early. Yeah. Did they what?
They won't have a pick early. So
no, they won't. They won't have a first round pick, is what you're saying. It's not that they're picking
here. Seahawks free agency and off-season pre-draft. Trade for Max Crosby, give your picks, sign Tyler Lindenbaum if he hits free agency, done. Everybody else re-sign, you're good to go. Seahawks are just fine in that case. Addicted to the Hawks comes back. Bryce Mookie, do you feel our D-line is a group of dogs? Get the O-line to be all dogs too. Fix at least one, prefer both. I think our D-line is a group of dogs as it is. You don't have an alpha, is what I will say right now. And what I mean by alpha is an alpha pass rusher. You don't have that on this group. You have a bunch of guys that can play and play well together as a unit. On the O-line, I think you're getting there. I don't know if our O-line will ever be nasty and mean and aggressive. I just don't know if that's what it'll be. Part of it's the scheme too. Like the zone scheme doesn't really demand nasty because you're not power blocking a lot of the time and duo blocking. But I would say if I had to pick one, I'd rather see them get another piece on the O-line to help out there if they can get something else to upgrade one of the two spots. Because I still think this D-line is good enough to win next year if you rolled it back.
Yeah, this defensive line is a true group of dogs, but a lot of it is because of the interior and having to deal with Murphy and Williams and Reed. And then, of course, you got Tank Lawrence and Chenna and Mafe and Hall. But that's the kind of the problem where, as you said, there's no alpha pass rusher. There's no superstar edge rusher in the making in this group. But like, they're doing such a damn good job anyway. Their run defense is the best in Seahawks history, bar none. Better than every single one of the Legion of Boom defenses. And they had very good run defenses as well. But yeah, the offensive line, at best, I think they change one position, either center or guard. And the fact that they can run the ball with Sundell now, that kind of is something to think about as far as Oluwatimi's future, because that was like the one argument in favor of him over Sundell. Well, if they're running the ball well with Sundell and they're still pass proing well, I don't think that they have to go back to There's no competition with Oluwatimi next year is what I'm getting at.
So this is a good one. This is from Dylan for $2. Appreciate it, Dylan. Any centers that you like in the draft or Reese from the Saints? There is one center I like and one that I'd be really keen on Seattle getting, and that's Logan Jones from Iowa. I really like him. He comes from literally the zone scheme. 6'3", 302. Like, I think he has the ability to be a really good, and he's shown it on film. Outside of that, I don't see a lot of, high-end centers where I'm like, yeah, you got to draft one of these guys. Like, Logan Jones is the only one that really pops in mind for me. Any for you guys, Mike?
So one guy I had earlier in the year was Parker Brailsford from Alabama, who was a star at Washington. But I think you can make a case Alabama had probably the most disappointing season from an offensive line standpoint, considering the talent and experience they had. They could not run the football. And if you go back and watch that Rose Bowl, that was an absolute mismatch, like in the same version of what we saw yesterday with the Niners and Seahawks between Indiana and Alabama, which it's a sentence I don't think I ever would have said in my entire life. But Jake Slaughter from Florida, like Florida had a year from hell, but that was an all-conference, very experienced center. I wrote about him, probably was one of my first articles over at Field Goals when I was breaking down my top prospects to watch this year. Doesn't wow you, but it's just kind of like Oluwatimi in that sense of like very experienced, very like just a good football player in the SEC. So it's kind of like, oh, well, maybe he can transfer over. But again, it was a year from hell for Florida. They fired their coach after a few games and stuff. But that's some guy that you might be able to find in the fourth round that might end up pushing to be a starter. But I don't know right now that I would say he's better than Sundell in 2 seasons. I don't know if I would say that. And I don't know if I would say that for any centers in this draft class.
The only one I could say that I think could come in and push Sundell out of the job is Logan Jones. And that's because of Iowa. Yeah, he's the only one that I really look at and think that. So we got another donation here from OEL for $5. Pardon the change in subjects, but did everyone here enjoy seeing Lynch's reaction to K9 converting a 3rd and 17? Yes, we did, OEL, and we actually showed it earlier on in the show. So if you want to see that, you can go back and watch that earlier. But we did actually have a clip of John Lynch losing his effing mind about that, which was fantastic. Got a couple more in here. We got Biggie D Smalls going, has anyone got anything good with IR stuff? Like who could come back? How many more people can we bring back? I think we can bring back 2, correct?
I think you get 2 additional slots because they didn't use one in the regular season. So they can't bring everybody back because there's just too many people in the IR there are more people on IR than the number they can bring back. I think that they're going to bring back Holani. And the reason why I say that is Cam Akers is out of elevations and they can't really roll with 2 running backs for the rest of the playoffs. I think Holani's close to coming back, which gives you a kick returner and gives you a special teams guy and a guy who is getting like the Arizona game. He was getting like significant workload in the second Arizona game. That is,
I think Arroyo's the other one.
Yeah.
And
those
Arroyo, I think they're kind of compelled to activate Arroyo. And then like Chaz Surratt would be kind of a luxury. It's a luxury
Well,
pick.
and I think, Tyrese Knight, I think's played well, and you could still activate Paul if you needed to. And to be honest, Patrick O'Connell, I think, has played better on specials than Surratt was.
Yeah, so it's basically the only story Biggie D Smalls is getting at is can Horton come back, and he can't. So, or he won't, which we kind of suspected.
So here's an interesting one for me and Victor, and I think a good point. He goes, folks, teams don't let good offensive linemen go unless there's a reason or they don't have enough to pay them, and you need to make sure that linemen fit within the system and not just sign them. And I think this is a really good point. And this goes back to our O-line conversation. It'll be interesting to see what happens this offseason, what they try to upgrade, or if they, like Michael said with his hot take, maybe they don't. But thank you, Ian, and always thank you for the work you, Amy, and John McGrath do as moderators of the Hawkside chat. Always appreciate it. What do we got here? John Doe comes in. Is there any chance Horton comes back for the Super Bowl? From the way Mike McDonald talked at his press conference before the 49ers game, I don't think there's a chance it's happening. I think, and I've said this for a while, Mookie, I said this the minute they traded for Shaheed, that I think Tory cracked something in his leg, and they just are going to wait it out and let it heal properly and get him back next year for a full offseason. Because I think Mike said it wouldn't affect his availability for next year, they don't think.
Yeah. And John Gilbert has also noted that the injury he had last year in college, it's common in the recovery process, and he recovered a little bit faster than the timeline suggested. Kind of those tibial fractures, like stress fracture. There was something happening there that is not catastrophic, but it's enough to shut him down for the year.
We got Herbicide in here. Wonder what we pay Shaheed. That's a good question.
I'm too high on how well the Seahawks did yesterday to really care about that right now, but I think it'll be like a mid-market deal.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Somewhere in the mid-market. What else we got? We got Daniel in here again for a $2 donation. Why is win and loss a QB stat, but 14-3 twice means nothing? It's a very good point, because there are not a lot of people giving him the 14-3 credit, but they want to talk about wins and losses. Like, I don't know why it's a stat, Daniel, to be brutally honest with you. I think it was a way to measure quarterbacks and Hall of Fame and all those kind of things, but none of those quarterbacks win games without a defense that plays on the other side and creates turnovers and stops for them to get the ball and get back on the field. So I agree with you. And there's only another quarterback that's ever won 14 games consecutively back-to-back, and he's a pretty good one. But I think Sam's the first to ever do it for two different teams back-to-back.
Yeah, well, the thing is, QB wins is not a great stat, but it is instructive that most good quarterbacks throughout the history of the NFL tend to win games. You don't ever think of, this all-time great quarterback or this really good quarterback kept going under 500 throughout his career. So, like, usually if you got a quarterback who wins a lot, they're probably a good quarterback.
This is fair. All right, and Dylan back in here. Resign Walker or draft a running back? Jeremiah Love. Ooh.
You misspelled Jonah Coleman's name. I mean, I appreciate Jeremiah Love, but I think he'd be out of our range anyway.
Yeah, I agree. And Jonah Coleman is one of my draft crushes already. Mike knows that. Mookie knows that. I also think he actually does fit the scheme quite well, the way he runs. I think there's a higher chance than not that maybe Ken Walker is back. And Mookie, you and me have talked about it at a point. I think Michael, you and me have as well, where it's somewhere of a 2-year deal in some respects, where it's like a $20 million 2-year deal where it's incentives and it can reach up to $10 million per year kind of a thing. It keeps him right in the mid market of running backs, because I think he's played well. And I think there's still upside to Walker. The way Mike's even talked about Walker, I feel, over the last few weeks is that of someone that wants that running back room to stay intact. And it takes one less thing off their plate, and it's not going to break their bank to do it.
Yep.
All right, what else do we got in here? Oh, here's another one. A $5 donation from Randy. Randy, you are on fire tonight, man. Appreciate all the support. Do you know what else Jay Harbaugh coached at Uncle John got hired as a head coach from special teams background. Wonder if he has potential as an OC in the future. So I actually have this for you, Randy. Jay Harbaugh's coaching career. He started in 2008 to 2011 at Oregon State as a student assistant, then coached with the Baltimore Ravens from 2012 to 2014 as a offensive quality control coach. from Michigan when he was there from 2015 to 2023. He coached tight ends, running backs, and special teams. And then his last year at Michigan, he switched off of the offensive side and went special teams and safeties coach. So Jay does have a very extensive background on offense with tight ends and running backs. I don't know if he's OC, though. I think he's a special teams guy at heart because that's what he's majority of coached there.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we've lost Michael. Michael's just so like out of it.
I just, what are we talking about Jay Harbaugh as becoming our offensive coordinator, or is he going to get hired away? I guess is my question.
I don't think he's going to get hired away. I think it's maybe, does he become potential replacement idea for Kubiak? Because there's a lot of fire right now, or I shouldn't say fire, smoke about Kubiak potentially being with the Raiders. I think Brady is going to go with Daboll and Flores is what I think he's going to do.
Oh, there's going to be a lot of fire in the form of Monday firings.
Yeah,
So,
that's
yeah.
true. Okay,
No,
fair enough. You're funny,
Yeah,
Mookie. Well played.
I think if Kubiak leaves, we already have our offensive coordinator. And Bryce, you mentioned that before.
Pete's.
Yeah.
Yeah, or Alton or so. Like,
Or Janoko.
Yeah, I'd rather Janoko than, because we saw Janoko call plays at FanFest.
Well, him and Pete's were calling plays at FanFest,
Yep.
which I thought was interesting. So, again, I think it's one of those two that's going to be the hiring case. But again, I don't think Kubiak's going anywhere personally. But anyhow, and then we've got Taker in here, comes in with, what are net points when you look at the standings? Seahawks had the largest positive number at 191. So I assume the points scored is points allowed.
Yeah,
Mookie?
point differential. Points scored minus points
Yep.
allowed equal. The Seahawks outscored their opponents by 191 points.
Yep.
Yes.
And while I've been going through all those, there's been 423 more comments that have gone in the
That's
chat.
crazy. That's awesome.
So let's see if I can catch up here a little bit, see if there's anything else in here that I've missed. Let's go all the way. This is interesting. Crunchy Fish Head brings this up. Kubiak sounded like a man who wanted long-term security. I think that was part of the reason he came to Seattle.
Yeah,
And
this
probably
coaching
part of the
staff ain't
discussion.
fired.
No. Addicted to Seahawks. If we get rid of Kubiak, how many years in a row have we fired an OC? Big hell no. Keep Kubiak. It wouldn't be a fire Kubiak situation. Addicted. It would be more if he leaves for a head coaching job.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Let's see. Yeah, I think that's going to wrap up tonight's show, guys. We've been at this for 2 hours now. Another long Seahawks Aftermath. We got to find a way to shorten these shows up, man. We're going super long here, but final whistle here, guys. Mike, what do you have coming up on field goals? I know you just mentioned you wrote an article earlier in the show.
Yeah, you can go catch all the cool post-game Seahawks victory, all the stuff over at Field Goals. Today I wrote about the scoring title for defense going to the Seahawks. And then tomorrow I should have 4 Down Territory out, just kind of talking about my thoughts on the win and just kind of the whole season as a whole as we kind of get ready for kind of, putting a cap on the regular season. And then before the playoffs start, I will put out my playoff predictions, who I think is going to win the Super Bowl. So read that, then go bet the exact opposite at your local betting establishment. Because I think right now I'm leaning right now Seahawks versus a 6 seed in the Super Bowl. That's where my head's at right now. So there's your hint.
I'm going to think it's you're thinking Houston.
No. But
I'm thinking the one team that I think has the one player that actually scares me.
Here's the thing. There was a no good wide right moment to end this regular season, and there's another team out there in the AFC with a very famous no good wide right.
Oh gosh, they're not making it that far, and
I know, but it's just one of those things where you kind of go the cowherd method of best quarterback, like.
Yeah, but it's best quarterback with the team that can't. Like, he would need their defense to do what the Colts did in 2006.
Hey, it's my playoff predictions to be wrong about. All right, so you can now I'm gonna overthink this, and tomorrow I'm just gonna go chalk. I'm not going chalk. I think the Denver Broncos lose their first playoff game. That's one of my first things that I feel really decent about, to be honest. But no, I think as a whole, I've been talking to a today, and not trying to like steal their ideas, but like literally we don't know how this playoffs is going to go. This is the most like, this could be the wildest NFL playoffs ever, simply because we just don't know if there's a true team, even though I think we kind of think Seattle is that team, but they're not without their warts. But like the AFC is going to be absolutely nuts. We just saw it tonight between 2 9-8 teams, or whatever they are, 9-7 teams. Like that was madness, and it was exciting. If you give me that, even though those are mid teams, give me that through to February and I'll be excited. But that's kind of what we got going on heading into a bye week, because the Seahawks won the NFC West and they have the 1 seed and they're sitting at home. How crazy is that?
It's pretty impressive here. Or as you know, Kirby enthusiasm, pretty good.
Pretty good. Yeah.
All right, Mookie, what do you got going on over there at Field Goals as managing editor?
Yeah, well, as soon as we're done with this podcast, and of course we're going long because we have a shitload of stuff to talk about. You got thousands of people in the comment section, so it's great. But anyway, Enemy Reaction is a very, very popular field goal series where I get to relive the highlights of the game from our side, and then the game thread comments from Niners Nation, the 49ers SB Nation site. And whenever the 49ers lose, there are meltdowns, so you won't want to miss this one. It'll be up Monday afternoon, or actually Monday morning. Michael's 4 Down Territory will be up that day, as will Jack Freeman, our newest writer, his case for why Mike McDonald should win Coach of the Year. So, be on the lookout for that. We got something from Tyler Olson as well about why the Seahawks finished with the best record of any team out of all the playoff teams. Well, tied with Denver, but you get the idea. So all sorts of fuzzy feelings and good things and things that will make you think, and fun stuff coming throughout this week, even on our bye week. So be sure to check out Field Goals, because we've just got so much content to do and to provide you. And truly thank all of you for how much traffic we're doing as well. As far as like the number of comments we're getting, the number of the page views, all of it. I mean, I've been kind of waiting for this for a while. We just needed the Seahawks to be great again, and they are. So now we're taking off. So let's keep this momentum going throughout January and into February.
Okay, before we go, we got 2 more donations that just came in before I say my piece to wrap the show up, guys. And again, appreciate the love and support of this show, everybody. It is absolutely fantastic, and it's really due to you guys. Taker comes in. Heaven help the league if our offense improves for $5. Could not agree more.
It'll be
you
over.
could mesh Mike McDonald's defense with what we used to have in the prime Mike Holmgren era. Like, get out of the way of this team. It is game over. And then Randy McDaniel, back in with a $5 donation. About Jay wasn't to replace Kubiak, more if he had aspirations as a head coach in the future, thinking move to OC somewhere to build a resume. Oh, okay. Thank you for clarifying, Randy. Yeah, it could potentially, if that's something he needs to do to potentially move up. Like, I'll say this, if he keeps doing what he's doing with the special teams unit, given his name, I think there is a chance he may earn himself a head coaching job off the merit of having Mike probably put in a really good word, John Schneider, John, you can go through the list, his dad, Jim. Like, there's a whole bunch of backing behind him if he has that opportunity. So it is definitely a possibility. Yeah, I think that's we're gonna wrap that up there, guys. Here on the Hawks Eye, it's gonna be an interesting week. I'll have a couple things coming out. It's a bye week. We'll have Seahawks Syndicate. I will probably do kind of a look ahead to some of our potential playoff matchups again. Now that that's more kind of confirmed and we've got a more idea of where teams have finished out and what those teams look like now going into the playoffs. Again, if you guys want, and I'll put this up on the screen quickly here. If you guys want, here's the QR code to go to Linktree for the Hawks Eye. It has where to find it on Instagram, where to find my Twitter page, again, where to find the show on Spotify as well. I will be getting this up in the new year here on Apple Podcasts. I'm going to do something else to get that all set up. So there's also a link there, guys, to my GoFundMe, as myself, Brandon Kane, and Dan Vians are all heading down to Senior Bowl. I set up a GoFundMe to help with some of my travel and lodging costs going down there for the week that I'll be there, to give you guys in the area at Mobile coverage of the draft with interviews of players, roundtable discussion with Brandon and Dan. So again, just another small thing. But so if you guys want to contribute, the link is up there at the top in that QR code. And again, I can't say enough how much I appreciate all of you guys being in the chat, the 900 of you, almost 1,000 at a point tonight being here. It's great. Thank you as always. And as we say here, stay loud, be proud, and go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Have a good night, everybody.
Division champs.